Chapter 567. It wasn't easy to cultivate the thunderclap ninth heaven. Thinking back, Ling Han had been struck by lightning for a few days in order to cultivate the body of lightning to the small success stage. And to improve the body of lightning, one had to continue being struck by lightning, absorbing the essence from the lightning, and gradually improving. This was extremely slow. From the time Ling Han cultivated to the small success stage until now, the steps he took were pitifully small. It couldn't be helped. Although the lightning strikes were extremely terrifying, for the body of lightning, the lightning essence contained within was extremely little. To be able to reach the large success stage within 50 years, Ling Han already considered it extremely fast. It was indeed fast. The large success stage of the body of lightning corresponded to the shattering void tier, and how many shattering void tier cultivators could cultivate it within 50 years? In the past, that was simply unrealistic. Even the deity transformation tier might not be able to achieve it. And only now, with the blossoming of the age of martial arts, speeding up the formation of elites, reaching the shattering void tier in 50 years was truly possible. But the benefits brought to Ling Han by a single flower of lightning surpassed the sum of the lightning strikes he'd received previously. How shocking was this? Hun Yo, you're definitely my lucky general, Ling Han said spontaneously. Hun Yo was happy, and said proudly, Nyo is Ling Han's lucky general. The two continued forward, but to Ling Han's disappointment, they didn't encounter another flower of lightning for a long time. They walked for close to the time it took for an incense stick to burn before finally arriving at the second flower of lightning. Hun Yo moved again, plucking the strange flower. Ling Han wasn't in a hurry to refine it, and instead stored it in the Black Tower. Now, he was more interested in the valley itself. What gave birth to this river of lightning? After walking for a while, Hong Long Long, the sound of tidal waves crashing could be heard, but it wasn't from the river of lightning. Ling Han was shocked. He turned his eyes to the other side, and shockingly saw that another river had appeared, but what surged in this river wasn't real water, nor was it lightning, but flames. It was hard to imagine that the flames were surging like a river, and they even made loud noises as they slapped. If this was lava, then it would be easy to understand, but it wasn't. It was pure flames, and there were patterns flickering in the flames. What was shocking was that Ling Han also discovered the patterns of the lightning attribute within. Previously, there were also flame patterns in the river of lightning. Could it be? Ling Han had a guess in his mind. This river of lightning and river of fire had once intersected, which was why they affected each other. He continued forward, and after a while, as expected, the two rivers intersected. However, out of Ling Han's expectations, it wasn't that the two rivers intersected, but merged together. There was only one river left. Lightning and flames surged in the river at the same time, yet they were clearly separated. The well water didn't interfere with the river water, and one white and one red appeared so dazzling. Ling Han came to a sudden realization. No wonder the two rivers affected each other. It turned out that they came from the same source. Although they still separated later on, it was inevitable that they would still affect each other to some extent. He was even more curious about what was at the end of this river, and why could it produce such a marvelous scene. However, it became more and more difficult to follow the river. Because the lightning and flames intersected, the power produced was even more terrifying. Even if they didn't actively attack, the lightning unceasingly shook and shattered the nearby space, while the flames turned this valley into a real furnace that could burn everything. Nyo doesn't like this place. Even Hun Yo began to complain. She wasn't afraid of lightning, but obviously wasn't immune to flames. Beads of sweat appeared on her small face. Ling Han was speechless. Only beads of sweat appeared, but he was already sweating like a stream. We'll continue forward. If we really can't take it anymore, we'll retreat, Ling Han said. Although he was very curious about this place, he wouldn't risk losing his life here. After all, his cultivation level was still low, and he could completely wait until he reached the heaven tier or the shattering void tier before coming back. But just when they were about to give up, this river of lightning and fire came to an end. They arrived at the bottom of the valley, and in front of them was a mountain wall. The river of lightning and fire surged out from underneath the mountain wall. And on the mountain wall, there was a cave. It was pitch black, and it was unknown where it led to. At this place, whether it was the power of lightning or flames, they all dropped to their lowest point. Although it was still very fierce, it was at least within the range of what they could endure. Ling Han looked at that cave, and had a sliver of hesitation. The cave could possibly hide the secret of this valley, but it could also contain endless dangers. Should he continue forward? He only hesitated slightly, and then decided to advance bravely. He still had an instant teleportation talisman, as well as the Black Tower, and even the power boost could temporarily allow him to possess the battle prowess of the Shattering Void tier. What existence in this vast lands could instantly kill him? Go! He held Hunyo's hand and walked into the cave. If the situation turned bad, he would immediately put Hunyo into the Black Tower. The cave was very dark, really dark, so dark that even when Ling Han opened the Eye of Truth, he couldn't see anything. He raised his right hand and transformed origin power into flames, but he clearly felt the rising flames, yet didn't see the slightest bit of fire. It was as if he was blind. However, if he turned around and looked outside the cave, he could clearly feel that surging river of lightning and fire. Ling Han couldn't help but be shocked. What was going on with this cave? Previously, in the purple fog, only his eyesight and divine sense were affected, but at least they could still be used. But now, it was as if he was really blind. Not only could his eyes not see, even his divine sense couldn't sense anything. If it weren't for the fact that he was still holding Hunyo's hand, he definitely wouldn't be able to sense that there was another person beside him. Right, he had also lost his sense of hearing. Strange, too strange. A great sense of alarm rose in his heart, but Ling Han still took another step and continued forward. The more it was so, the more his curiosity grew, and he wanted to know the reason. Small tower, do you know what this place is? He used his divine sense to communicate with the Black Tower. There's a sliver of source power. Small tower revealed a sliver of caution. If you find it for me to swallow, I can repair 100 millionth of it. Fuck. Ling Han really wanted to curse. This place was so terrifying, and the river of lightning and fire surged, exuding the brilliance of the Shattering Void tier. Just thinking about it, he knew that the source was extraordinary. However, he could only repair 1/1000th of the Black Tower. Then, if he had the chance to live, would he be able to see the Black Tower light up again? Be careful, Small Tower warned. If there is life here, then it would be too easy to kill you. Nonsense. Ling Han couldn't be bothered to pay attention to it, and simply continued to advance. This was a stretch of pure darkness. He couldn't see, hear, or smell anything, and even his sense of touch was disappearing. He was clearly holding Hunyo's small hand, yet he found that this sense of touch was becoming weaker and weaker, as if he had become a walking corpse. He couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb. What kind of lousy place was this? It was too strange. He didn't know how much time had passed, but Ling Han finally couldn't sense anything. He didn't even know if he was still walking in this cave. Having lost his 5 senses, what difference was there between him and a walking corpse? He told himself that he was searching, but he completely didn't know where he was going. Had he bumped into a wall? Because he had no sense of touch, even if he kept banging into the mountain wall, he wouldn't be able to sense anything. Forced to do so, he entered the Black Tower. Chapter 568. The old man from before was slapped in the face again. This girl that looked a bit stupid was clearly more terrifying than the little girl from before. Her battle prowess was too shocking, crushing 4 corpse soldiers with a single swing. Middle States prodigy, there's going to be another newcomer, he said ruefully. There shouldn't be another such freak, right? Someone interrupted. Definitely not. The old man said with absolute certainty. 2 such geniuses appearing all at once today was already a great miracle. Again and again, how could there be a third? Hellion Sun Shui was still in shock. Looking at the 4 skeletons that she smashed apart, she couldn't help but pat her flat chest, and said curiously, "So I'm this powerful." Han Guyun was now in a dilemma. The strongest in the Thousand Corpse sect was obviously corpse soldiers, but 4 corpse soldiers were smashed into dregs at the same time. Wasn't she courting death if she went up? However, the opponent didn't look like an expert at all, and only had shocking brute force. If she retreated without a fight, wouldn't it be too embarrassing? Ninth, step down, Bai Yuan said. He was a heaven-tier elite and had sharp eyes, so he could obviously tell that although Hellion Sun Shui lacked battle experience, her strength was too strong. She only needed to move based on instinct to defeat her opponent, because her level had already surpassed the Flower Blossom tier. Such an opponent, even the third would be useless, so the eldest or the second had to come. For the next few battles, we all admitted defeat. "Girl, you're pretty good, interested in joining our sect?" Bai Yuan started to poach. This muddle-headed and cute girl seemed easy to trick. "No way." Hellion Sun Shui hurriedly shook her head, showing a pitiful expression to Ling Han as she looked at the city top. She wanted to go back, but it was too high. Ling Han guided patiently, and said, "Jump up yourself, you can do it." Hellion Sun Shui kept shaking her head, and said, "It's too high, I can't jump up." She had no confidence at all. "How would you know if you don't try?" Ling Han said with a smile. Hellion Sun Shui pouted, and could only do her best to jump. Xiao, she instantly soared into the sky, not only leaping over the city wall, but also far beyond it, turning into a small black dot. After a while, peng, a ball of light suddenly exploded in the sky. Not good, she ran into the city's defensive formation. Although the main purpose of the formation is to protect, if you actively collide with it, it will still trigger the formation's impact. I'm afraid that even those in the divine transformation realm will be killed. It's over. Bam! Right at this moment, a silhouette landed heavily on the city wall. Under the powerful impact, a section of the city wall actually collapsed. A cloud of smoke and dust filled the air, and a silhouette walked out shakily. Who else could it be but Hellion Xuanxue? Everyone's faces involuntarily twitched again. This woman had actually crashed into the defensive array. Just how terrifying was her physique to be able to make her act as if nothing had happened? Ouch, 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 ouch. Hellion Sun Shui groaned as she held her head, but there was not a single injury on her body, causing everyone to be speechless. Ling Han also clenched his teeth. No wonder even though this woman lost her memories and couldn't circulate her origin power, he was still completely suppressed by her. This wasn't a coincidence, but rather this woman's body cultivation had also reached an extremely terrifying level. Hellion Sun Shui was like a wrong child, walking to Ling Han's side and pulling on the corner of his clothes, looking like she was about to cry, causing everyone to be speechless. Even if she wanted to cry, it should be for the Thousand Corpse sect below, and more so for the defensive formation in the sky, okay? Ling Han looked down, and said to Bai Yuan, "Now, we have 190 spots." "Right." Bai Yuan nodded, but his expression was a bit difficult. He didn't expect this at all. He originally wanted to temper these 10 youngsters to prevent them from being too proud and arrogant, but now, this blow seemed to be a bit too big. Xianyuan Ziguang was fine, at least being matched by Zhu Tiangu, but the appearance of Hun You and Hellion Sun Shui was practically trampling on their confidence. One was a little girl only 6 or 7 years old, and the other had a freakish physical strength. In a battle of the same age, they were practically invincible. Now, the Thousand Corpse sect urgently needed to win to boost their morale, and also boost the confidence of these 9 youngsters. Ling Han leaped down from the top of the city wall, and said, "Then I'll be your opponent and earn a few more spots to leave the city." Where did this youngster get his confidence from? Bai Yuan sneered. Xianyuan Ziguang was in the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier, rarely seen at this age, and he even formed 22 flashes of qi, possessing terrifying strength. He couldn't see through Hun You and Hellion Sun Shui, so someone he couldn't see through obviously wasn't simple. But Ling Han? The 2nd layer of the Flower Blossom tier was clear at a glance. Even if this brat could surpass 10 stars to battle, he would only have 12 stars of battle prowess, and almost half of the people here could crush him. Good, this brat could boost their morale. Bai Yuan nodded, and said, "Fourth, you go." The fourth, Tian Xiaoning, ranked second in strength among the 10. He himself was an expert in the 8th layer of the flower blossom tier, and the number of corpse soldiers he could control was similarly as many as 5, not much inferior to Zhu Tiange. Letting Tian Xiaoning go straight up was to obtain an overwhelming victory to boost morale. Tian Xiaoning walked out with large strides. He was close to 30 years old, tall, but naturally bald. His forehead was glossy, and he didn't even have eyebrows. His entire face gave people an extremely strange feeling. When Ling Han saw, he couldn't help but laugh and said, cultivating to the point of balding, "You're indeed extraordinary." The corner of Tian Xiaoning's mouth couldn't help but twitch, and he said, "You're shooting your mouth off like this, ridiculing randomly. This is inviting a great disaster for your own life." "Oh, you want my life," Ling Han said with a smile. "Just based on what you said just now, you should die," Tian Xiaoning said coldly. "You really don't have a sense of humor. Did you spoil your brain from cultivating?" Ling Han said with a smile. "Impudent." Tian Xiaoning struck out with a palm towards Ling Han, and the black corpse chi turned into a skull, biting towards Ling Han. Ling Han casually flicked a finger, and this skull instantly exploded. He smiled faintly, and said, "Better summon the corpse soldiers, your bit of strength really isn't enough." Pooh! Quite a few people already spurted out blood. Although they only exchanged one move, and neither side used their full strength, Tian Xiaoning was at the 8th layer of the flower blossom tier. To be able to easily dissolve his attack, Ling Han's strength couldn't be underestimated. Tian Xiaoning looked coldly at Ling Han, and after a while, he said, "Since you insist on being abused, then I'll fulfill your wish." He gave a long howl, and instantly, a rumbling sound rang out. 5 coffins slid over, and 5 corpse soldiers jumped out. "There's actually 5 corpse soldiers," an old antique exclaimed. "The difference of 1 corpse, but the difference in strength is like heaven and earth. This time, that youngster is in danger." Chapter 569. Ling Han crooked his finger, and said, "Come. I'll grant your wish." Tian Xiaoning gave a long howl, controlling the 5 corpse soldiers to attack Ling Han. And when the 5 corpse soldiers pounced at Ling Han, covering his figure, everyone shook their heads. This young man was obviously dead for sure. This wasn't the first person to die today, and it wouldn't be the last, so everyone didn't take it to heart. Who would care about an unknown person? However, the next scene made everyone's jaws drop. Ling Han's figure was extremely slippery, moving freely under the siege of 5 corpse soldiers. If he couldn't dodge, he would block with his hand, and with a flash of golden light, the attacking corpse soldier was shaken back. How is this possible? Isn't this guy only at the 2nd layer of the flower blossom tier? How can his strength be so terrifying? Those corpse soldiers have about 14 stars battle prowess, right? Definitely 14 stars, but this guy can block them with a casual wave of his hand. This strength is too terrifying. Genius, an absolute genius. He's definitely not inferior to Shenyuan Ziguang and Yao Huiyu. The face of the veteran from before twitched. In a short while, 3 super geniuses ran out and ruthlessly slapped him in the face, wishing there was a big hole in the ground for him to crawl into. He has some strength. Tian Xiaoning sneered and joined the battle. The weapon he used was a bone sword. Its shape was probably taken from the leg bone of a giant beast and then polished. There were vein-like patterns on it, definitely naturally formed. Once activated, the vein-like patterns shone and linked up one after another, releasing a shocking grand light. Ling Han seemed to see a giant ferocious beast floating on the sword's blade. That terrifying body seemed to be able to crush heaven and earth. His eyes lit up, and he said, "This was refined from the leg bone of a Xia, right?" According to legend, the true dragon had 9 sons, but each one was different. Because they were all born from the true dragon and different demonic beasts, the offspring only inherited part of the true dragon's bloodline. The Ba Xia was one of them. It looked like a fish, but not a fish. Its head was like a lion, but it had a pair of horns. Its entire body was covered in dragon scales. Even if they only had a trace of the true dragon's bloodline, all of the beasts in the world regarded the true dragon as their leader. From this, it could be seen just how high their status was. Possessing a trace of the true dragon's bloodline was already extremely extraordinary and difficult to find in the world. Tian Xiaoning revealed a look of surprise and said, "You actually recognize this sword." He also only knew about the legend of the Ba Xia after being bestowed the sword. It was just that this Ba Xia's bloodline was even thinner, otherwise it was a dragon's descendant. How could it be so easily killed and its leg bones extracted to make a sword? Your bloodline is thin, and your vein-like patterns are heterogeneous. That's all there is to it. Ling Han made another evaluation. Tian Xiaoningbo was so angry that his nose became crooked. You were shocked at first, but now you're saying, that's all. How can I accept this? He snorted coldly, and said, it's more than enough to kill you. He brandished the sword and slashed at Ling Han. This bone sword was extracted from the leg bone of a divine beast descendant, and then refined with various precious materials. It could be regarded as one of the best among level 6 spirit tools. With this slash, an enormous phantom of a vicious beast immediately appeared, pouncing towards Ling Han. Ling Han laughed and said, this sword is not bad, I'll take it. The demon birth sword could not be used casually, so temporarily using this sword as a replacement was not bad. Impudent. Tian Xiaoning was furious. This brat was too arrogant, actually treating him as nothing. Ling Han used the demon fairy step and directly arrived in front of Tian Xiaoning, his fists punching out continuously. The 5 corpse soldiers actually became decorations. Amidst angry roars and strange cries, they charged back and chased after Ling Han. This time, it became a head-on confrontation between Tian Xiaoning and Ling Han. He was not afraid, however. With a swing of his sword, 9 flashes of sword chi were formed. With the support of the bone sword, each flash of sword chi transformed into a terrifying 3-meter-long waterfall, slashing towards Ling Han. Ling Han was naturally even more unafraid, and directly swung his fists to meet it. Peng, 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 these sword chi were instantly shattered. Seeing this scene, everyone held their heads and cried out in surprise. This was too inconceivable. One had to know that those 9 flashes of sword chi were all stimulated by the bone sword, and their sharpness was equivalent to that of a bone sword. This was also the reason why everyone pursued a good spirit tool. However, Ling Han shattered these sword chi with one punch, and his fist actually didn't suffer the slightest injury. Was that still a body of flesh and blood? Tian Xiaoning was also shocked. He originally thought that blood would splatter in the sky if Ling Han swung his fist to block it, but unexpectedly nothing happened at all. He couldn't help but doubt the bone sword in his hand. Was it really made from the bone of an ancient divine beast? No need to doubt, this is because my fist is harder, Ling Han said with a smile. He cultivated the indestructible heaven scroll, and if he really cultivated the body of diamond, his physique would definitely be even more tyrannical than a true dragon's. Although he now had the body of iron sheet, the bone sword was only made from a gloomy viper, not even the son of a divine beast, so how could it possibly injure him? To threaten his 6th-tier body of iron sheet, it had to use a 7th-tier spirit tool no matter what. As they spoke, Ling Han's fists continuously bombarded, forcing Tian Xiaoning to retreat. This was very interesting. Tian Xiaoning retreated, Ling Han chased, and behind him were 5 corpse soldiers, forcibly turning what should have been a group brawl into a one-on-one chase. This young man discovered the corpse soldiers' biggest weakness. Someone on the city wall clapped and laughed. That's right, the weakness of corpse soldiers is that their speed isn't fast enough. After all, they're just remains and can't use movement arts. But just the explosive power itself is equivalent to the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier, and there aren't many that can surpass them in speed. This young man's movement arts are truly extraordinary. Many things could actually be seen through with a little poke, but even if it was seen through, not everyone could do it. This was what it meant to be easy for a person to carry a burden, but if one had to go up himself, he might only be able to groan. Tian Xiao Ning was shocked. In this way, the 5 corpse soldiers were useless, and he became the one facing Ling Han alone. However, the majority of the 1,000 corpse sect's battle prowess came from corpse soldiers, and if corpse soldiers couldn't play a role, their own strength would naturally be greatly discounted. He was actually quite extraordinary, with the cultivation of the 8th layer of the flower blossom tier and battle prowess reaching 15 stars, enough to look down on his peers, but encountering a freak like Ling Han, he could only be miserable. Ancient bone patterns condensed on Ling Han's fists. Close combat was now his forte, and the power of body cultivators burst forth, not much weaker than origin power. Each punch was like a pile driver. Only body cultivators could bombard so fast. The physical strength of origin power cultivators couldn't keep up, so they could only work on chi, replacing speed with quantity. Peng, 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 peng. After more than 100 punches in a row, Tian Xiao Ning's bone sword instantly flew out of his hand and was caught by Ling Han. "Give it back!" Tian Xiao Ning hurriedly called out. This was a treasure personally bestowed to him by the Lord Sect Master. Ling Han shook his head, and said, "In your hands, this spirit tool has really fallen into disgrace." He turned around and stared at the 5 corpse soldiers that pounced at him. Chapter 570. Ling Han charged towards the 5 corpse soldiers, brandishing his bone sword as the desolate hell sword technique was already in full swing, but it was purely for defense. A circle of white light danced, and his defense was impenetrable, keeping the 5 corpse soldiers outside of the sword light. He had just seen Shenyuan Ziguang condense 22 flashes of qi. It wasn't a ray, but it had some of a ray's power, greatly enlightening him. Why couldn't he? Even if it was just a simulated ray, he might be able to push the second sword of the 3 styles of black origin, and the destructive power of that attack would become incredibly terrifying. Although the mysterious 3000 could unleash 3000 flashes of sword light at its limit, with terrifying destructive power, it was essentially a group attack move, and 10,000 techniques returned to one was truly unstoppable. Gathering 3000 strikes into one sword, what kind of terrifying destructive power was this? Ling Han treated the 5 corpse soldiers as sparring partners. As he brandished his bone sword, sword chi danced freely, but it was disorderly. He was in the midst of comprehension and had no clue yet, so he was naturally like a child brandishing a sword, completely out of order. But it didn't matter, the desolate hell sword technique was a heaven-grade technique known for its defense in the first place, and with this operation, it naturally made his defense watertight. Unless he crushed Ling Han in battle prowess, it would be difficult to break through this purely defensive sword technique. Tian Xiao Ning shouted in anger, emitting corpse chi from all over his body to stimulate the 5 corpse soldiers, causing their battle prowess to soar, wanting to take down Ling Han in one fell swoop. Ling Han was immersed in his own world, and the bone sword operated almost instinctively. Occasionally, there would be an oversight that the corpse soldiers caught and slapped, but so what? He had a body of iron sheet, which was as hard as rare metals of the same level. The more the corpse soldiers exerted force, the more their own skeletons trembled, as if they were about to collapse. This wasn't an illusion. It was like a stone man fighting with a wooden man. Even if the stone man sat still and let the wooden man bombard him, the harder the wooden man bombarded, the easier it would be for him to collapse. However, the gap between Ling Han and the corpse soldiers was not as big as that between a rock and a piece of wood. Moreover, the power that was blasted was real. Ling Han's physique was indeed strong, but the impact of the power still made him feel a little uncomfortable. Thankfully, he would only occasionally be hit once or twice. With the circulation of the indestructible heaven scroll, the boiling energy in his body immediately calmed down, and he was completely fine. Watching such a battle, everyone was speechless. "You're the corpse soldier, right? How can you be so hard?" And some people even thought that Ling Han's previous battle was incomparably nimble, shaking off the 5 cumbersome corpse soldiers and forcing Tian Xiaoning to only be able to fight one-on-one, but now he displayed terrifying defensive strength. This fellow was too well-rounded. His attacks were like the horns of an antelope, leaving no trace to be seen. His defense was as steady as a mountain. His heavy sword had no edge, and there was almost no flaw to be found. In a battle of the same level, who could be his match? Xianyuan Ziguang or Yao Huiyu? Ling Han didn't care about everyone's shock. He only used the 5 corpse soldiers as whetstones, sharpening his condensation of sword qi. Moreover, not far away, Xianyuan Ziguang was fighting fiercely with Zhu Tiangu, so he could refer to it at any time and apply what he learned on the spot. This was equivalent to teaching on the spot, and Ling Han also had the eye of truth. Ling Han was too freakish, making many people jealous. However, some attentive people discovered that this sword qi of Ling Han's lasted a tiny bit longer than before. It was really just a tiny bit, but it was certainly prolonged. Regarding this point, Ling Han was naturally the clearest. He revealed a smile, and swung out again without being discouraged, improving on his shortcomings. 10 strikes, 20 strikes, 30 strikes, his improvement became more and more obvious, so obvious that most people discovered that the time his sword qi took to condense was getting longer and longer. Tian Xiaoning was shocked. Was he becoming Ling Han's whetstone? He roared loudly, and said, "Blood bone break." Instantly, the 5 corpse soldiers roared violently, letting out beast-like roars. Their right arms actually underwent a strange transformation, turning into a bone spear, emitting a terrifying aura. The 5 corpse soldiers brandished their bone spears at the same time, thrusting towards Ling Han. That aura seemed to be able to penetrate even the strongest defense with one strike. Break! Ling Han also shouted lightly, swinging out a resplendent sword. Chapter 571. This cloak has the effect of concealment, right? Ling Han said. Corpse 2 nodded, and said, "That's right, this is a secret treasure. Within a certain distance, it can conceal divine sense and isolate vision. It's a divine item for assassination and infiltration." "Thanks for dispelling my doubts," Ling Han said with a smile. "You're welcome. You're a man about to die anyway, and I usually give a certain amount of respect to those who die in my hands," Corpse 2 said with a smile. "Since there's a Corpse 2, is there a Corpse 1? Ling Han asked again. Corpse 2 shook his head, and said, "There's no Corpse 1, but there's one called Corpse Boss, who awakened a step earlier than me and developed intelligence." Ling Han's heart instantly beat wildly. Awakened a step earlier and developed intelligence, what did this mean? Could it be that this Corpse 2 wasn't born, but like the rock spirit, its body existed for countless years, and then suddenly developed intelligence, giving birth to a special life? Corpse 2 cracked a smile, but it was so funny that it was very stiff, making people feel strange just by looking at it. He said, "You guessed right, I was originally a corpse. I don't know which elite I was in the last life, but my corpse didn't decompose after tens of thousands of years, and finally obtained the spirit of heaven and earth, developing intelligence anew." Ling Han couldn't help but look solemn. No wonder he felt this person was very old and very young, extremely contradictory. It turned out that a new soul was born on the old corpse, a miraculous life bestowed by the heavens. It was a combination of life and death, so it was obviously young and old. In that case, Corpse Boss is also like this. Corpse 2 nodded, and said, "That's right, Corpse Boss is stronger than me, because his corpse is better. However, after developing a second life, I can cultivate a new, and in the future, I won't lose to him." Damn, freak. This was an old corpse coming back to life, and it was unknown how shocking his battle prowess would be. Could he use the secret technique from the last life? One had to know that the owner of this body could actually keep the corpse from decaying for tens of thousands of years, so he was definitely an extremely powerful existence when he was alive. His martial intent was definitely fused into every piece of flesh and bone. Now that the body wasn't decaying, his martial intent might even be reactivated, so how could this not be shocking? The Thousand Corpse sect really thinks highly of me, sending such a big shot to kill me. Ling Han said. The other party's strength was at least 5 stars of heaven tier, and he believed that such strength could be called an expert among experts in the Thousand Corpse sect. There were definitely not many that were stronger than him. Corpse 2 laughed loudly, and said, "Who asked you to seek your own death and establish a dynasty? This is something our sect definitely can't allow." Ling Han's heart moved, and he said, "Could it be that the Thousand Corpse sect also has plans to establish a nation?" Our sect's goal is to establish a massive corpse nation. This isn't any secret, Corpse 2 said indifferently. Ling Han seemed to have caught on to something, and said, "Could it be that the Thousand Corpse sect is also?" He made a sky-splitting gesture, interested. Corpse 2 grinned, and said, "That's right, but it's slightly different from what you think. Splitting open the sky was to bring the entire vast lands into the realm of gods, raising the level of the vast lands as a whole, turning it into divine land." Wait, Ling Han was startled inwardly. Since there were people who cultivated netherworld arts and could break open another layer of void to enter the netherworld, then which realm would the people who cultivated netherworld arts ascend to when they split open the sky? Netherworld. Hiss, the Thousand Corpse sect was also a very big dream. However, with the strength that the Thousand Corpse sect displayed so far, did they have such strength? It wasn't that Ling Han looked down on them, but the difference was really quite far. Probably, any one of the 5 great sects could sweep them clean. Otherwise, why would the Thousand Corpse sect be a coward for so many years? Corpse 2 was neither hurried nor slow, as if he wasn't here to be an assassin at all. He said unhurriedly, "I know you're stalling for time, but so am I. You've been poisoned by my corpse poison, and it's impossible to expel it. It'll only become more and more serious. As I said, I'm quite respectful to the dead." Ling Han lowered his head and saw that the black wound on his waist was expanding as expected, almost turning his entire waist black. Zhu Xian immediately cried out in shock. Being wounded by someone from the Thousand Corpse sect, there couldn't possibly be a good ending. If he didn't die, he'd become a corpse soldier. Ling Han nodded, and said, "As expected of a 10,000-year-old corpse demon, my body of diamond actually can't automatically expel such corpse poison." He circulated the indestructible heaven scroll, and wang, golden light immediately flickered all over his body, making him seem like an awe-inspiring god of war. Corpse 2 put his hands behind his back, appearing indifferent and having no intention of stopping him at all. He said indifferently, "You're right, I'm indeed a 10,000-year-old corpse. At least this body is, and not just 10,000 years, but at least several 100,000 years." He suddenly seemed to have the interest to talk, and said, "You know, corpses are like trees, having corpse wheels. The corpse wheels on my body have at least 300,000. Hee, sorry, I don't have the leisure to count them clearly." Counting age, this was probably the oldest generation in the vast lands. Even Ma Duo Bao, who'd slept for 100 or 200,000 years, couldn't compare. For 300,000 years, my body has always been placed in a place of extinguishing yang and extreme yin, forming a heavy corpse qi that's beyond imagination. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to give birth to a new divine sense, and could only become a corpse soldier. Ling Han's whole body was shrouded in golden light, and he said, "Then why do you need to rely on the Thousand Corpse sect? You can be free and unrestrained, and run amok between heaven and earth. People always have some dreams. My dream is the same as the Thousand Corpse sects, so we're obviously like-minded. Besides..." Corpse 2 broke into a smile. "This is a corpse of mine, and also needs corpse chi to increase cultivation. If I don't join the Thousand Corpse sect, where can I go?" The golden light faded, and Ling Han shook his head, and said, "A 10,000-year-old corpse is powerful as expected. I can't expel such corpse poison." It wasn't that the indestructible heaven scroll wasn't powerful, but that this old corpse had been buried for over 300,000 years, and the corpse poison had expired for too long. Even a shattering void tier elite probably wouldn't be able to withstand it. Moreover, Ling Han's cultivation was a bit low, and if he were at the same level as Corpse 2, then the indestructible heaven scroll would definitely have room to show off. At this time, the corpse poison had already climbed to Ling Han's chest. Corpse 2 was slightly surprised, and said, "Your strength isn't bad, and the cultivation technique you cultivate is even better, being able to control the spread of the corpse poison so slowly. If it were another deity transformation tier elite, even 1,000 of them would have become corpse soldiers. Sigh, I really can't bear to kill such a genius. Although corpse soldiers are powerful, they don't have intelligence after all, so there's a limit to how powerful they are." He appeared to be very rueful. "Since you said so, how could I disappoint you?" Ling Han smiled, and his figure flashed again and again, even faster than the blink of an eye. However, the corpse poison on his body completely dissipated. His skin was bright and clean like warm jade, emitting divine light and untainted by dust. Corpse 2's expression changed in shock. How was this possible? Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 572. However, this battle between Ling Han and Xianyuan Ziguang did not succeed in the end. Yin Shuiyang made a move, separating the two of them. Tomorrow at noon, you can bring your men out and leave this city." Bai Yuan pointed at Ling Han, Helian Xuanxue, and the others as he spoke. After he finished speaking, he left. He had suffered a great defeat, so he naturally did not have the face to stay any longer. "Little Yang, why didn't you make him stay?" An old woman appeared soundlessly. She held a walking stick in her hand, and although she looked old and clumsy, anyone who looked at her would feel as if their head was about to explode. This showed just how powerful she was. "Sister Ma, even if we join forces, can we defeat 7 flower blossom tier corpse soldiers?" Yin Shuiyang countered with a question. The old woman was speechless. The higher the cultivation level of a member of the 1,000 corpse sect, the more terrifying they were, because they could also control more corpse soldiers. Ordinary disciples could only control 1 or 2 corpse soldiers of the same level, and geniuses could easily handle them. However, an existence like Bai Yuan was able to control 7 corpse soldiers. This was too shocking. Moreover, who knew what level these corpse soldiers were at? Low-level heaven tier was fine, but mid-level heaven tier was a bit troublesome. High-level heaven tier was practically invincible, and for peak stage heaven tier, it was better to ask Shattering Void tier elites to come. With the city guarding formation, Bai Yuan definitely couldn't charge in, but he didn't need to charge in either. The 4th killing formation just had to wear him down for a few more days, and Million Treasures City would become a speck of dust in history. However, weren't there still a lot of places to leave the city? Ling Han obtained 90, Hunyou also obtained 90, Helian Sun Shui obtained 100, Xianyuan Ziguang only obtained 10, and Pang Xiangming also obtained 10, but he himself gave up. There were a total of 190 places, but Ling Han alone had control over the distribution of 180 places. Thus, a large part of the reason Yin Shuiyang stopped the battle between Ling Han and Xianyuan Ziguang was because of the allocation of these spots. Since Bai Yuan swore an oath, it should be trustworthy. The key was that staying here would only lead to death, so even if it was risky, he had to give it a try. Everyone wanted a place to go out. Ling Han thought for a while and came up with an idea: auction. He didn't have a good impression of the so-called rich and powerful families in the city, so he naturally wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to rip them off. That night, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion held a unique auction. There was only one item to be auctioned, and that was the 180 quotas to leave the city. Ling Han did not want gold or silver. He only wanted essence crystals, and it had to be 3-star essence crystals. Of course, whoever was willing to take out 4-star, 5-star, and 6-star essence crystals to snap up the purchase, Ling Han naturally would not refuse. Every quota started from 100 3-star origin crystals, and after some intense competition, the cheapest quota reached 500 3-star origin crystals, and the most expensive one was auctioned off for 17,000. That was the last quota, and it caused a frenzied scramble. Excluding the 10% commission he gave to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, Ling Han still received close to 200,000 3-star origin crystals, which made him beam with joy. After breaking through to the flower blossom tier, his cultivation speed slowed down, but with so many 3-star origin crystals, his cultivation speed could increase again. Storing all the origin crystals into the Black Tower, Ling Han was very pleased, and started drinking with Zhu Xian and the others in the side courtyard. After drinking, he couldn't fall asleep for a while, so he went for a walk by the lake. Helian Sun Shui naturally stuck to his side, tugging on the corner of his clothes and holding that brick in her hand, looking like she would dare to smash Ling Han if he dared to fling her. As they walked, they saw a black shadow standing by the lake, holding a wine gourd in one hand and pouring fine wine into the lake. The mellow fragrance of the wine spread, causing all the pores on Ling Han's body to relax. This was an exceptional wine, and martial artists would definitely benefit greatly if they drank it. Ling Han's face was filled with reluctance, and he said, dear brother, such fine wine, wouldn't it be a pity to waste it?" That person's back was facing Ling Han, and when he heard the words, he turned around and swept a glance at Ling Han. However, when his gaze swept past Helian Sun Shui, he paused slightly, and a hint of confusion appeared in his eyes, but he immediately recovered his clarity. He laughed loudly, and directly threw the wine gourd to Ling Han, and said, "Then I'll treat you to a drink." Ling Han caught the wine gourd, and instantly, he felt an astonishing fragrance of wine, making him feel as if he was ascending to become a celestial being. He focused his eyes, and saw that the wine was golden in color, like fine wine. He was a grandmaster alchemist, so how could he lack understanding of worldly treasures? He blurted out, "Purple moon Ganoderma, thousand wind fruit, purple cloud soul essence, void flower, this is monkey's wine." Monkey's wine was said to be a fine wine brewed by monkeys gathering all kinds of spirit fruits and medicinal ingredients. Not only was it delicious and fragrant, but it was also an excellent tonic. The monkey's wine brewed by different levels of demon monkeys also had different effects, and to be able to contain the few medicinal ingredients that Ling Han mentioned, it was definitely brewed by the most top-notch demon monkeys. Even Ling Han didn't have the chance to taste it in his previous life. It could be said that even a drop of this monkey's wine was extremely precious. Although Ling Han made a big profit tonight, taking out all of it wouldn't be enough to buy a drop. Too precious. I didn't think that a youngster like you could actually recognize the raw materials of this monkey's wine. That person was also slightly surprised. Under the illumination of the moonlight, he saw that this was a burly man with a tall and sturdy build. Standing there, he gave people the feeling of a tall mountain, as if even if the sky collapsed, he could hold it up. Ling Han was startled, he actually couldn't see through this middle-aged man. But thinking about it, it was normal. This was Million Treasures City, and the appearance of a few high-level heaven-tier elites was not a rare thing. "Brother, this wine is too precious, I don't dare to drink it carelessly," Ling Han said with a smile, and threw the wine gourd back. That burly man laughed loudly, and said, "Since you recognize this monkey's wine, then we're fated. Please." He threw the wine gourd back to Ling Han, bold and sincere, making people feel as if they could feel his magnanimous heart. Ling Han didn't act pretentiously anymore, and said, "Then thank you." He raised his head, and the wine inside the gourd instantly poured out, turning into a waterfall that flowed into his mouth. It was only a mouthful, but Ling Han felt like he was going to get drunk. This monkey's wine was both nutritious and strong, directly acting on divine sense. Even spiritual infant tier and deity transformation tier elites would easily get drunk. However, Ling Han still had a sliver of heaven tier divine sense, and under the tempering of the primal chaos source rock, it was even more tenacious, so he didn't fall down in one mouthful. However, his eyes couldn't help but become hazy. After he tasted his fill, he threw the wine gourd to that burly man, and said, "Brother, please." That burly man caught the gourd, and also felt a wave of pleasure. He was much more kick-ass than Ling Han, gulping, actually drinking half of the gourd in one go. Ling Han couldn't help but grit his teeth. If he drank half of the gourd, then he'd definitely be drunk to death, going straight to see the king of hell. It couldn't be helped, this was the difference in cultivation level, the other party was definitely a high-level heaven-tier existence. Sigh, can't get drunk. That burly man sighed, as if nothing had happened. He was pretending. Chapter 573. Brother, something's on your mind? Ling Han's cultivation level was clearly far lower than the others, but the other didn't reveal his identity, so he was happy to pretend he didn't know. As a former elite of the heaven tier, and an old monster from 10,000 years ago, he was naturally unwilling to address these little guys as seniors. The large man only drank to his heart's content, sorrow showing in his eyes. Say no more, it must be hurt by love, Ling Han immediately said. You can tell that too? The large man turned to him. Ling Han chuckled, and said, I've been through it, how can I not tell? Then another toast. The large man said with a laugh. With a shake of his hand, he took out a wine cup, filled it, and threw it to Ling Han. With the strength of such a great elite, he naturally wouldn't spill a single drop of wine. Ling Han didn't dare to do it again. If he did, he would definitely have to lie down, so he took a small sip. The large man didn't force him, and gulped down the wine himself, causing Ling Han's heart to ache. This was really like a cow chewing on a peony, a huge waste. Monkey wine was so precious, and the other drinking it like this was practically a waste. Brother, if there's anything sad, just say it. You'll feel better if you say it, Ling Han advised. The large man took a deep look at Ling Han, and actually really spoke. His story was very simple. A young man fell in love with a young woman. They met at this lake for the first time and fell in love at first sight. Later, they traveled the world hand in hand, loving each other and having a sweet relationship. But perhaps the single dog's resentment was too heavy, and the young woman actually contracted an incurable disease. Even if the young man's cultivation was exceptional, he couldn't find a cure. In the end, the young woman passed away, leaving the young man alone. Every year at this time, the young man would come here to reminisce about his first encounter with the woman. Countless years passed, and the young man also became the uncle of today. Ling Han couldn't help but sympathize, and also told him about the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. Of course, he wouldn't directly say that it was something from 10,000 years ago, and slightly changed his appearance. This time, the two of them really were tortoises and mung beans. They finally met. Actually, the feelings between the two of them were completely different, but both of them had lost their loved ones, so the more they talked, the more they got along. With a bit of drunkenness, the two of them actually became sworn brothers. Second brother, I'm Feng Piyun. If anyone wants to bully you in the future, just say Big Brother's name, the large man said as he hooked his arm around Ling Han's shoulder. I'm Ling Han. Ling Han didn't give him a fake name. The feeling this burly man gave him was one of boldness and magnanimity. He wasn't the type to place too much importance on benefits. Moreover, this person was a true man of character. Sigh, Big Brother, I just can't get drunk. Feng Piyun continuously shook his head, appearing to be extremely regretful. His cultivation level was too high, and it could be said that there was no wine that could make him drunk in this world. This Big Brother was really a weirdo. This monkey's wine was found in the ancient forest because he wanted to get drunk, and he even had a great battle with 3 terrifying monkey beasts, but even so, he still wasn't drunk. Ling Han patted his chest and said, Big Brother, don't worry, I'll definitely brew the best wine in the world for you, making you drunk for 3 years. He really wasn't bragging. In his previous life, he entered too many historical sites, and aside from obtaining many cultivation techniques and martial arts techniques, he also obtained some unorthodox things, such as the recipe for brewing wine. There was a kind of divine brew that had nature-defying effects, and was said to make even gods drunk, but the required materials were also ridiculously precious. Even in his previous life, he couldn't have gathered them. In this life, he had the qualifications to advance into the Shattering Void tier, so there was naturally hope of refining divine brew. Ling Han was willing to call him Big Brother because Feng Piyun was already over 400 years old, older than Ling Han's 2 lives combined, so calling him Big Brother was still appropriate. As for the 10,000 years in the soul state, the body was gone, so it obviously wouldn't age, so it couldn't be counted. Then Big Brother will be waiting for you. Feng Piyun laughed loudly. Although the two brothers hadn't known each other for long, their temperaments were congenial, and the more they chatted, the more congenial they became. One had to know that Ling Han had lived 2 lives, and in his previous life, he even stood at the top of the world, so how could his knowledge and experience be inferior? They talked for a long time, and in the end, Ling Han fell down in a daze. When he opened his eyes again, he saw a snow-white jade neck and a beautiful chin. It turned out that his head was resting on Helian Sun Shue's thigh. As expected, it was flat-chested. Otherwise, from his angle, what he could see would be 2 mountain peaks, and it was impossible to reach her chin, let alone her neck. However, if this Hainyo recovered her memories in the future and recalled this scene, Ling Han instantly broke out in a waterfall-like cold sweat. This was the rhythm of being hunted down. This wine was really fierce. However, Ling Han immediately discovered that his cultivation actually soared by 2 small tiers. One had to know that starting from the flower blossom tier, the increase in cultivation was directly related to the comprehension of martial art, but he actually increased by 2 small tiers in the state of drunkenness. What kind of concept was this? The monkey's wine was really too awesome. Ling Han sighed. However, this was also because it was the first time he drank it, so the effect was the fiercest. If he drank it again next time, there would definitely be benefits, but it definitely wouldn't be so fierce. It should be like spiritual liquid, flowing slowly. Moreover, drinking like this was really a bit unbearable, his head was about to explode. Ling Han. Helian Sun Shui called out worriedly. Hainyo, softer, softer. Ling Han hurriedly pressed down with his hand. With her calling out, his head started to buzz again. He took out the spiritual liquid from the Black Tower, drank a few mouthfuls to sober up, and then cupped some lake water to wash the wine. Only then did he feel slightly better, and said, "Where's my big brother?" "He left," Helian Sun Shui said. Helian Sun Shui said, however, he said he'll come later and help you resolve a predicament. Resolve a predicament, could it be referring to the matter of Million Treasures City being trapped? However, although this big brother was fierce, it was the 4th killing formation outside. Let's go back first and talk. Ling Han looked at the sky. It was almost noon, and presumably, those forces that won the spots yesterday were probably going crazy with anxiety. As expected, when he arrived at the city gates, he saw many people glaring at him with extremely unfriendly expressions. "Han Lin, why did you only come now?" someone berated. Ling Han's face was full of disgust, and he covered his ears as he said, "Are you sick? What are you yelling for? Can't you speak properly, you?" That person was a spiritual infant tier elite, and seeing that Ling Han actually dared to speak to him like this, he couldn't help but reveal a furious expression. "Alright, don't let others laugh at you," Yin Shuiyang said, pointing below the city gates. Bai Yuan already appeared. Ling Han said, "The 180 people who won the spots yesterday, all leave." He had the Black Tower, so he obviously didn't think about the spots. Moreover, he still wanted to get all the innocent people out of the city. The 180 people left the city gates, and their faces were all filled with the pleasant surprise of surviving a calamity. They could finally leave this damned place. "Old man, you've made this place a foul atmosphere, and I don't like it at all." With a deep shout, a tall figure walked out from the city, waved at Bai Yuan, and said, "How Million Treasures City was originally, restore it to how it was." Chapter 574. Ling Han was surprised. This man that was like a mountain was obviously his sworn brother, Feng Piyun, who he became sworn brothers with yesterday. Who is this, such nerve, actually daring to call a heaven-tier elite an old man? Don't know, probably an unorthodox person. Trapped in the city for too long, his brain became muddled and crazy. Reasonable, reasonable. The people on the city wall discussed animatedly. Not everyone had Ling Han's judgment and could see Feng Piyun's strength. In the eyes of ordinary people, this large man was only slightly sturdy and extraordinary, and there wasn't much special about him. However, the Heaven tier elites in the open and in the dark all revealed serious expressions. They couldn't see through this man's strength. This proved one thing: his cultivation wasn't below theirs in the slightest. Bai Yuan was even more careful. With a long howl, the seven-headed coffins slid over from afar. The other party came with ill intentions, and would most likely attack, so he couldn't be careless. Normally, Heaven tier elites pretty much stood at the peak of the world, so they were obviously bold and unrestrained. However, who told the Thousand Corpse sect to be more special? Even the Shattering Void tier sect master hid his head but showed his tail, never showing his true body, so the 7 Heaven tier venerables under him were obviously cautious. At least before the Thousand Corpse sect officially stood in front of everyone, they all maintained a low profile and cautious style. "Who are you?" Bai Yuan shouted. Feng Piyun picked his ears and said, "Is there something wrong with your hearing? I told you to remove this stupid formation, or else I'll personally dismantle it." "Ha, what an arrogant tone, why don't you dismantle it for me?" Bai Yuan said menacingly. This was the 4th killing formation, and although the sect master didn't obtain the complete formation, and could only unleash 50% of its power, killing low-level Shattering Void tier elites wasn't a difficult thing, and this large man actually said he wanted to dismantle it. Humph, humph. Feng Piyun's gaze focused, and like a flash of lightning, Bai Yuan felt pain in his eyes as if his eyeballs were about to explode. So powerful! Bai Yuan was shocked, and hurriedly ordered the corpse soldiers to attack. Peng, 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 7 coffins opened at the same time, and 7 corpse soldiers jumped out. Each of them only had their bones left, but their bones were golden, as if they were made of metal. However, there were inch-long spikes on each bone, giving off an extremely strange feeling. "Just 7 sets of bones, and you want to stop me?" Feng Piyun was disdainful. Bai Yuan was furious. These 7 corpse soldiers had been refined with the help of the Lord sect leader, and in terms of defense alone, they had already reached the peak of the Heaven tier. Even a peak Heaven tier warrior would have to spend some effort to destroy them. Moreover, the offensive power of these corpse soldiers was not weak at all. After the bone spurs had been tempered 100 times, they could easily tear through the defense of Heaven tier elites. As long as they got close, they could instantly pierce a Heaven tier elite into a bloody hole. "Kill!" White Eye pointed at Feng Piyun, and suddenly, 7 corpse soldiers leaped out at the same time, attacking Feng Piyun. "Should we help?" An old woman appeared at the top of the city wall and asked Yin Shuiyang. "Little Yang, I don't know this person at all. His strength is unfathomable, let's talk about it first," Yin Shuiyang said, shaking his head. "I seem to have seen this person somewhere." Another old man appeared, staring at Feng Piyun with a doubtful expression. Ling Han couldn't help but be a bit worried. These 7 corpse soldiers were all level 3 golden armored corpses, and they had been tempered to the extreme. Even if he recovered the strength of his previous life, he wouldn't dare to fight them head-on, unless it was a freak like Sword Emperor or Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. Feng Piyun didn't take it to heart at all, instead taking out a wine gourd and drinking in large mouthfuls. The wine flowed down the corner of his mouth, and his beard was full of sparkling liquid, full of the vicissitudes of life. The corpse soldiers attacked, and he was instantly submerged in the golden bones. "It's over," everyone said inwardly. Those were level 3 golden armored corpses, and being close to them, no matter how strong a Heaven tier elite was, it would probably be hard to escape death. They really didn't think that an elite would actually die in such a useless manner. White Eye sneered. This was the result of not taking him seriously. Did they really think that the Thousand Corpse sect was easy to bully just because they didn't come out? Wrong, everyone in the Thousand Corpse sect raised corpses, and each person could at least fight 1 against 2. The higher the tier, the more terrifying the battle prowess. He alone could fight against 6 or 7 Heaven tier elites. How shocking was that? Wang, under the attack of the 7 corpse soldiers, a purple brilliance surged, turning into a circle, and then suddenly exploding. Peng, 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 the 7 corpse soldiers were actually blasted away at the same time, and at the same time, The bones that were as strong as the peak stage of the heaven tier were disintegrating, turning into countless broken bones. Purple brilliance flickered, and Feng Piyun stood proudly like a supreme god. His feet stepped on the earth, his head in the sky, and the whole heaven and earth had to crawl and tremble under him. His eyes were like stars, and his hair fluttered, emitting a shocking divine light like a divine chain of order that could lock and destroy everything. The supreme aura vibrated, striking the 9 heavens and shaking the 9 underworlds. He was the sole ruler. Pa, 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 everyone knelt down. Only heaven tier elites could barely resist, but they still couldn't hide the anxiety and terror in their hearts, almost not even having the courage to fight. Shattering void tier. Bai Yuan's face was deathly pale, and his expression was extremely dispirited. The 7 corpse soldiers all had a sliver of his divine sense, and now that it was directly erased by Feng Piyun, he also suffered considerable injuries, and now only had 30% of his battle prowess left. However, the 1,000 corpse sect relied on corpse soldiers, and now the 7 corpse soldiers were all dregs. His 30% of battle prowess was only relative to his main body, and his true battle prowess was probably less than 1%. Everyone no longer had a shred of doubt. Only the strongest existence in this world could defeat 7 peak heaven tier corpse soldiers in one strike. Shattering void tier, greetings, milord. On top of the city walls, Yin Shuiyang and the other heaven tier elites all saluted respectfully. Shattering void tier, even in the middle state, there were only so many, and they could be counted on one's fingers. Feng Piyun. Finally, someone revealed Feng Piyun's identity. Feng Piyun waved his hand, appearing dispirited, and said to Bai Yuan, "Don't say I'm bullying a child, remove this great formation, and never come to Million Treasures City again." Bai Yuan similarly saluted respectfully. Regardless of whether he was an enemy or a friend, Shattering Void tier elites had too lofty a status, standing at the peak of humanity, and with another step, they could become gods, gaining the admiration of the world. However, after saluting, he said, "Forgive this old man for not being able to obey, Lord Feng. Taking down this city is my sect master's order, and this old man doesn't dare to disobey. Then where's your sect master? Have him come out, and I'll beat him until he's convinced," Feng Piyun said domineeringly. This. Bai Yuan revealed a hint of annoyance. In his mind, the sect master was even more like a god, invincible in humanity, so how could he be insulted lightly? He said, "Lord sect master is tied up with trivial matters, and can't come see Lord Feng for a while." Chapter 575. This was a very strange person. His figure was very tall, and his face was simple and unadorned. There were actually lines on his face, as if he was born with them, but this was not what was strange about it. Rather, there were actually 2 small buns growing on his head, as if a fawn was about to grow horns. The aura of the heaven tier, and it was an existence of high level, or even peak level. "Fourth uncle, what's there to talk about with these lowly humans, just directly take down all of them." A youngster also walked into the palace, dressed in a multicolored battle suit, like a gorgeously dressed peacock. Helian Xuanxue came over, and lowered her voice to a single line, saying, "The older one is Xianyu Cheng, and the younger one is Xianyu Dongming. Don't provoke them, fool them away." Ling Han suddenly realized that this was the sea race. Truly arrogant, did they really think this was their territory? Thinking again, it was no wonder. Xianyu alone had close to 30 Shattering Void tier elites, so what kind of accumulation and terrifying strength was this? In the eyes of the sea race, this was probably a remote and desolate place. However, Xianyu Dongming, Ling Han walked towards the peacock man. This was Helian Xuanxue's fiancé. He heard Helian Xuanxue say that the Helian and Xianyu families were discussing about joining forces to resist the Wenren royal family together. Because among the 3 great royal families of the North Sea, the Wenren were the strongest, even to the extent that they could annihilate any one of the other 2 families by themselves. Thus, the 2 families could only join forces to resist. But how could they guarantee that everyone was of one mind and not stab each other in the back? Alliance by marriage. Helian Xuanxue was the most outstanding woman in the younger generation of the Helian family, while Xianyu Dongming was the most outstanding man in the Xianyu family. Although he was still slightly inferior to Helian Xuanxue, he wasn't much weaker. It was just that Helian Xuanxue was too dazzling. However, after Helian Xuanxue discovered the matter of settling accounts, she had a plan to obtain the Vial of Curses, and could only carry it out secretly. Otherwise, once the crime of murdering a royal family member was put on her head, even the royal family would be furious. Unexpectedly, she was bombarded by the large silver spider and lost all her memories, running away with Ling Han from then on. Only after a spring breeze did she recover her memories. She returned to the North Sea, but discovered that she was secretly pregnant, so she no longer had the thought of marrying Xianyu Dongming, hiding and giving birth to a child. However, paper couldn't contain fire, and the news leaked out, so she could only flee for her life with her son. Now, the sea race finally caught up. Ling Han withdrew his gaze, stood up from the throne, and walked over with large strides. He said, "I can make the decision, what advice do you have?" He wasn't afraid that the two from the Xianyu family would recognize Helian Xuanxue, because Helian Xuanxue not only changed her appearance with the appearance alteration pill, but also cultivated his ancient art, capable of changing cultivation and aura. She was now only in the flower life tier, so no matter what, no one would associate her with the Pearl of the North Sea. Xianyu Cheng's gaze swept over, and a terrifying pressure overflowed, capable of cracking the skin of a deity transformation tier warrior. He intended to give Ling Han a show of strength, but what disappointed and surprised him was that Ling Han looked fine, not the slightest bit affected. This human was somewhat strange. But that was all. Xianyu family's background was too deep, and even when facing the 5 great ancient sects, he could keep his back straight and even berate them from a higher position, so what did this mere deity transformation tier junior amount to? He opened his mouth and said, "This lord wants you to find someone." "Oh, who?" Ling Han said indifferently, although he already knew in his heart that it was Helian Xuanxue. Xianyu Cheng raised his hand and threw out a painting scroll, and said, "Use all your power to find the girl in the painting. If you find her, this lord will reward you, and if you can't find her, you guys can prepare for your own funerals. Fourth uncle, the environment here is pretty good." Xianyu Dongming sat on the throne, and said carelessly, "Let's stay here and wait." "All right." Xianyu Cheng pondered slightly, then nodded. Although the North region was far from the size of the North Sea, it wasn't something two people could find. Even if they ran all over the place, they wouldn't find anything, so it was better to wait here for news. Moreover, although he was a senior, Xianyu Dongming's position in the clan was above his. This boy had very pure ancestral blood, but it hadn't completely recovered yet. His future accomplishments were limitless, and he received the focused nurturing of many shattering void tier elites in the clan. So as long as it wasn't too excessive, he would let Xianyu Dongming do as he pleased. "Palace maids over there, bring over the things you're carrying." Xianyu Dongming waved his hand at the palace maids standing solemnly on both sides. These palace maids carried all kinds of fruits in their hands. The colors were alluring, and the fragrance assailed the nostrils, making one's appetite stir. Those palace maids all walked towards Ling Han, and Ling Han's gaze gave rise to a sliver of killing intent, but after seeing Helian Sun Shui, he forcibly suppressed his killing intent and nodded, indicating for those palace maids to do as he was told. The officials in the imperial court all felt humiliated. This was their Great Ling Empire's core of power, representing Great Ling Empire's face, and now an outsider occupied the throne and casually berated it. But what could be done? The other party was too powerful, and even Yuan Cheng he couldn't bear that imposing manner. Who could rival him? Forcibly falling out would only be courting death, so the choice was naturally simple. Xianyu Dongming casually took some fruits to eat and instantly relaxed his brows. He said, "Fourth uncle, these things are really delicious, have a taste." He tossed some fruits to Xianyu Cheng. Xianyu Cheng was experienced and prudent, obviously not as disregarding his image as Xianyu Dongming. However, the other party had good intentions, and if he didn't accept, it wouldn't be justifiable, so he plucked a grape and put it into his mouth. Instantly, he also revealed a look of astonishment. Too fresh, too delicious. Moreover, the grape also contained a sliver of spiritual power that could be directly absorbed. Although pitifully little, it was definitely good stuff for low-level martial artists. If the Xianyu clan could grow grapes like this in large quantities, then in 20 to 30 years, the clan's entire strength would definitely be able to increase by a level. Xianyu Dongming became more and more presumptuous. He stared at the palace maids, and couldn't help but reveal a bewitching smile as he said, "I didn't expect human women to be so good. Hey, steward, in the future, prepare a large box of fruits like this for me every month, and also these palace maids, 10. Although humans are lowly, there's no harm in playing with them. 10 is enough, I can't play with more." Ling Han revealed a smile, but it was extremely cold. "You ran into my territory, stole my position, and still want me to gift you money and women. What, you're still not convinced?" Xianyu Dongming sneered. What a joke. He, the Grand Xianyu clan of the North Sea, was willing to sit here because he was worthy of you, or else with the lowly and filthy human race, he wouldn't even want to enter. I plan to stay here for a month, and in this month, you find the woman on the picture scroll for me. If you find her, I'll leave, but don't forget the fruits and palace maids every month. If you can't find her, then you can go die," he said. The smile on Ling Han's face became even more resplendent, and he said, "I've tolerated you for so long, but you insist on seeking your own death, so I can only kill you. Heaven's might cannot be violated, remember it in your next life." Chapter 576. Ling Han shook his head, and said, "Business must be honest. You bought those spots yourself and used them today, not to be returned." "Bullshit." Someone immediately jumped up. "A mere flower blossom tier cultivator dares to be so bold, you're tired of living. Hand over the origin crystals, and we can spare your life. Young man, don't seek your own death because of some worldly possessions." There were some who threatened, and some who advised, but all of them wanted to take back the origin crystals from Ling Han. Ling Han cracked a smile, and said, "Spirit Treasures Pavilion takes 10% of the commission, do you dare ask them for it? That's your business, unrelated to us." Those people immediately said. What a joke, Spirit Treasures Pavilion had shattering void tier elites overseeing it, who dared ask them for money? "What if I don't?" Ling Han said with a smile. "That's not up to you." Everyone pressed forward. Those that could take out such a large sum of money were obviously the rich families of the city, with at least spiritual infant tier elites overseeing it. Deity transformation tier elites weren't rare, and there might even be heaven tier backers. Now, it wasn't a matter of 180 people, but also the families behind them. With such power, it was enough to sweep through the north region. What did Ling Han use to block? He couldn't block it at all. However, Ling Han smiled without fear, and said, "You guys threaten me like this, don't regret it later." "Huh, can you also set up some fourth killing formation?" Everyone laughed. "Even if he can, don't we still have a shattering void tier elite? Brat, quickly hand over the origin crystals. And you have to compensate, daring to deceive us, hand over your martial art cultivation technique." Right, and martial art cultivation technique. Everyone's eyes lit up. Ling Han's performance earlier was extremely monstrous. Whether it was defense, movement, or attack, they all far surpassed a second layer flower blossom tier. When did this brat reach the fourth layer of the flower blossom tier? In just one night, he actually advanced 2 minor tiers, who could believe it? However, everyone's hearts immediately became fiery. This young man had too many secrets, and if they could obtain them, they might be able to change the future of a clan. Everyone surrounded Ling Han, their killing intent surging. Helian Xuanxue hurriedly raised the brick and said, You guys don't mess around, the person over there is Henin's big brother. She was actually smart, and even learned to borrow power." Everyone burst into laughter when they heard that. Big brother, your sister. A mere flower blossom tier cultivator, how could he possibly be the brother of an ultimate elite of the Shattering Void tier? There was a gap of several hundred years between the two of them. If you don't hand it over, we'll kill you, said one of them impatiently. Oh, what do you want to do to my brother? A voice floated over from afar. Hearing this voice, most of the people immediately shivered, but there were also a few people who just stared at Ling Han, and didn't try to explain at all, clamoring, of course it's to force him to hand over the origin crystals and cultivation method. How dare you! Feng Peyun had already walked over, the aura of the Shattering Void tier rolling out. As his step landed, divine patterns bloomed, blooming like celestial flowers. Pa, pa, pa. Everyone hurriedly knelt down again. Feng Peyun walked to Ling Han's side, and said with a smile, "Second brother, is someone trying to harm you?" Ling Han smiled faintly, turned his head towards everyone, and said, "My big brother is asking if you guys want to harm me." Everyone was about to cry. How did this brat really become a Shattering Void tier brother? If they'd known earlier, they wouldn't have dared to threaten Ling Han even if they were given 10,000 guts. They hurriedly shook their heads one after another and said, "We don't dare, we don't dare." Then why did you guys surround me just now, and even look murderous? Don't you know that I'm the most cowardly and can't take a scare? Ling Han said deliberately. Cowardly? Quite a few people ridiculed inwardly, but how would they dare to say it out loud? They hurriedly said, "We wanted to give you origin crystals." Right, give origin crystals. The others hurriedly said. Everyone was smart. Ling Han didn't bite them to death for forcing him, and gave them a way out. No matter how they thought about it, it was the meaning of using money to buy their lives. Ling Han smiled, and said, "Big brother, they're all good people." Feng Peyun nodded, and said, "That's good. Whoever dares to harm my second brother, I'll break all the bones in his body." Everyone's hearts trembled. These were the words of a great Shattering Void tier elite, powerful and resonant, so how could they be spoken carelessly? Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "Then later, send all the origin crystals to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, I'll live there." "Big brother, let's go drink." "Okay." Feng Peyun nodded, and left with Ling Han. The Shattering Void tier elite didn't speak, so even Yin Shuiyang and the others didn't dare to interrupt, and could only watch the two leave. On the other hand, Zhu Xian'er, Helian Sun Shui, and Hu Niu all chased after them. Xianyuan Ziguang's expression darkened, and he clenched his fists tightly. He didn't think that Ling Han actually became sworn brothers with a great Shattering Void tier elite. Would he still dare to kill Ling Han now? What was so special about this brat that Feng Peyun actually treated him with special respect? Ling Han and Feng Peyun arrived at Ling Han's side courtyard in the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, took out the food from the Black Tower, and after cooking it, the five of them sat down together and started eating. Hu Niu feared nothing, and Helian Sun Shui didn't know the tier of martial art at all. Only Zhu Xian'er showed proper reverence, appearing very reserved. This made Feng Peyun feel very interested, and he said, "This little girl isn't simple." He looked at Hu Niu, revealing a surprised expression. Even a Shattering Void tier elite said so. Niu is the best. Hu Niu wasn't modest at all, and even extended her small arms to make a strong pose. Feng Peyun laughed loudly, and said, "Second brother, I didn't expect your luck with women to be so good, a beauty's love is deep." Zhu Xian'er immediately revealed a bashful expression, but Helian Sun Shui didn't notice at all, only focused on snatching food from Hu Niu. She was strong, and Hu Niu couldn't get the upper hand at all. Niu is the big beauty, Ling Han is Niu's. Hu Niu hugged Ling Han, not caring that her small hands were covered in oil. Feng Peyun clicked his tongue in wonder, this little girl really matured early. He looked at Helian Sun Shui's face a few more times, and said, "Second brother, the sea race's waters are very deep, you have to be careful." Ling Han was surprised, and said, "Big brother, you know this Hai Niu's identity?" "A member of the sea race's royal family, a true dragon's descendant," Feng Peyun said casually. The shattering void tear was the shattering void tear, as expected, it couldn't be hidden from him. Ling Han nodded, and said, "This girl lost her memories." He suppressed his voice into a line, and told about the ancient mine in the desolate North Fire Country, including the terrifying giant silver spider. "Oh." Feng Peyun immediately revealed a curious expression, and said, "Then I'll go. Big brother, be careful." Ling Han saw the appearance of that giant spider exuding divine might, a mere figure almost shattered his divine sense. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 577. Ha ha ha, second brother has no confidence in big brother? Feng Peyun laughed loudly. Ling Han shook his head, and said, "How could I have no confidence in big brother, but I saw that silver divine spider with my own eyes. That's definitely a shattering void tier existence, and possibly an extremely high level." Feng Peyun nodded with a smile, and said, "Relax, second brother, I'm already at the 7th layer of the shattering void tier." The shattering void tier stood at the peak of humanity, and the 7th layer of the shattering void tier was undoubtedly the peak of the peak, almost invincible. After a slight pause, Ling Han said, "I didn't expect Big Brother to be so powerful. Although appearance couldn't represent true age, this Big Brother's blood and chi soared to the skies, obviously still in his prime. Then, when charging to the 9th layer of the shattering void tier, he should be able to maintain his current blood and chi, enough to break through the void. Otherwise, breaking through the void when one was old, and once blood and chi couldn't keep up, dying in the process of breaking through the void wouldn't be a rare thing. There were such legends since ancient times." Feng Peyun nodded, and said, "Second brother, your battle prowess is outstanding, and your talent in martial art is similarly astonishing, already advancing into the flower blossom tier at the age of 20. Even I was far inferior back then. In the future, it won't be difficult for you to enter the shattering void tier. However..." He paused, his expression solemn. "I always have an inexplicable fear, always feeling that if I break through the void, there will be terrifying consequences." Ling Han was puzzled, and said, "Big brother, don't you have to reach the 9th layer of the shattering void tier to break through the void?" Feng Peyun shook his head, and said, "As long as you advance into the shattering void tier, you'll have the ability to break through the void. It's just that the higher the tier, the lower the difficulty. I haven't taken this step for a long time, firstly because I'm reluctant to leave, and secondly because of the fear in my heart." Ling Han understood that when one's martial arts cultivation reached an extremely high level, one would naturally develop a premonition of the future. It was not a premonition of being able to see the future, but rather a feeling of foreboding and inauspiciousness that would arise after one had decided to do something. In his previous life, he was also like this. When exploring historical sites, after making a certain choice, he would inexplicably have warning signs, so he would give up and make the opposite choice. However, this was not omnipotent. Otherwise, he would not have lost his physical body due to the Black Tower. Since advancing into the shattering void tier means that one can step into the immortal realm, and Big Brother has already reached the 7th layer of the shattering void tier, logically speaking, he should be very confident, Ling Han said, puzzled. "I don't understand either." Feng Peyun shook his head. "I've also asked a few others, and they're all like me, not daring to take that step lightly. The possibility of dying is extremely high. The other people he spoke of must also be shattering void tier beings. However, some people clearly know the reason, but are unwilling to say," Feng Peyun continued. "Which ones?" Ling Han's heart stirred. "The Sword King of the Heaven Sword Sect, the Azure Phoenix Heaven Empress of the Cloud Phoenix Sect, the Heaven-Shattering Saber of the Absolute Saber Sect, the Thunder Emperor of the Blue Thunder Sect, and the Beast Snake King of the Earth Dragon Sect." Feng Peyun counted with his fingers. This one sees that Thunder Emperor and Azure Phoenix Empress should be at the consummate level of the Shattering Void tier. What did the Thousand Corpse sect want the most? First, superior raw materials for corpse soldiers, the corpses of elites, the stronger, the better. Second, corpse chi, this was their source of power, and also the source of power for corpse soldiers. To say that the Thousand Corpse sect didn't hesitate to appear in public and lay down the fourth killing formation for a 10th-tier spirit tool, Ling Han wouldn't believe it no matter what. Then, under Million Treasures City, either a large pile of shattering void-tier corpses was buried, or there was a source of corpse chi hidden underground that could allow the Thousand Corpse sect's overall strength to skyrocket in a short period of time. Ling Han wasn't interested in either. At this moment, the 8 Pavilion Masters of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the 2 heaven-grade alchemists of the Alchemist Society finally returned, obviously empty-handed. Even Ling Han, the genuine alchemy emperor, didn't know where his previous life's possessions were, let alone others. When they returned, the competition of the 5 Regions Spirit Treasures Pavilions branches was also brought forward, and wasn't cancelled because of the Thousand Corpse sect siege. Now that there was a shattering void-tier elite keeping watch, Million Treasures City could be said to be stable, unless the Thousand Corpse sect could lay down the flawless fourth killing formation. However, if they could, wouldn't they have already laid it out, and wouldn't need to go through the trouble twice? For the time being, Million Treasures City should have returned to normal, and as for when the Thousand Corpse sect would make a comeback, it was unclear. Ling Han cultivated in seclusion, and Feng Piyun left the rest of the monkey wine for him. Although taking it again didn't have as obvious of benefits as the first time, his cultivation had an obvious increase, and more importantly, he had a breakthrough on the path of the sword. The 20th flash of sword chi was about to be condensed. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 578. After crossing the barrier of 10 flashes of sword chi, Ling Han's journey was smooth, and he soon formed 9 flashes of sword chi, but these 20 flashes of sword chi was another barrier that stuck him for a long time. Feng Piyun treated Ling Han, his sworn brother, well, leaving behind the monkey wine with the intent of martial art that he specially sealed inside. When Ling Han drank it, the intent of martial art also circulated within his body, improving his comprehension of martial art in all aspects. This made Ling Han extremely shocked. Reaching the spiritual ocean tier, one could brand the intent of martial art on weapons, and after a long period of nourishment, it could become a spirit tool. After advancing into the flower blossom tier, one could brand the intent of martial art on special materials, turning them into spirit talismans. The spiritual infant tier was even more awesome, writing decrees that could suppress the world. Of course, deity transformation tier and heaven tier warriors could also write decrees that were more powerful. It wasn't that Ling Han didn't write decrees in his previous life, which were very convenient and could intimidate a region without having to do it himself. However, sealing the intent of martial art into the wine liquid could make people consume it and turn it into their own. Ling Han could only accept this method. When martial artists refined origin crystals, they could also leave behind a sliver of the intent of martial art, but compared to this, it was far inferior. Feng Piyun was a sword master. The reason why he would leave the intent of martial art in the monkey wine was obviously because Ling Han used a sword, so he specially helped him. This intent of martial art was extremely pure, without a trace of impurities, and only supreme comprehension of sword arts. For Ling Han, this gift was truly priceless. In the first 5 days, Ling Han kept improving his cultivation. The monkey wine didn't increase his tier as crazily as the first time, but it still allowed him to improve 2 small tiers, reaching the 6th layer of the flower blossom tier. In the next 5 days, Ling Han was trying to figure out Feng Piyun's sword Dao, but he did not directly absorb it. Instead, he used it as a reference. If he directly absorbed it, with Feng Piyun's level in the way of the sword, it would be enough to take the initiative and affect Ling Han's own path. He could only follow Feng Piyun's path, but he had already chosen the path he wanted to walk, so he naturally had to jump out of this circle. Stones from other mountains can be used to improve jade. What Feng Piyun cultivated was the emotion sword, the pinnacle of emotion. He only loved one person in his life, and even if the other person died, his feelings would not change, and his infatuation would not disappear. To be honest, Ling Han had no way of comprehending this kind of sword intent. It was true that he liked the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, but he definitely couldn't be as infatuated as Feng Piyun. He only extracted Feng Peyun's comprehension on the path of the sword. After all, this was the result of Feng Peyun's several hundred years of bitter cultivation on the path of the sword. Moreover, it was at the height of the shattering void tier, which had long surpassed the level of sword chi and sword ray, and reached the level of sword heart. With sword heart illuminated, even if one held a blade of grass, they could cut down the stars in the sky. Feng Peyun's sword heart shone in Ling Han's consciousness, and Ling Han used Feng Peyun's sword heart to illuminate his own heart, increasing his comprehension on the path of the sword and condensing sword chi. 5 days later, Ling Han flicked his right hand. Shwa, 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 19 flashes of sword chi slashed out, and the 20th flash of sword chi was hidden on his fingertip, yet it was hidden and didn't shoot out. A sprout had already sprouted. Ling Han continuously waved his fingers, and the 20th flash of sword chi became thicker and thicker, quickly taking shape. 20 flashes of sword chi is a threshold, and after crossing it, the power would at least double. Ling Han nodded inwardly. Previously, when he fought with Shenyuan Ziguang, he felt immense pressure, mainly because the latter grasped more than 20 flashes of sword chi, forming a qualitative change. If I fight with that guy again now, I have a 50% chance of winning. It can't be helped. I can't use the mysterious 3000, and my strongest technique can't be used. Otherwise, one move would be enough to decide the outcome. While there's still time, I'll continue cultivating sword chi. Since I've crossed the great barrier of 20 flashes, I should be able to cultivate a few more flashes of sword chi in a short period of time. While Feng Peyun's sword heart was still there, Ling Han naturally couldn't waste it. This was an extremely rare opportunity, and even Feng Peyun might not be able to do it a few more times. Splitting his own sword heart and giving it to someone else was actually a kind of harm to himself. Ling Han couldn't help but feel rueful. This big brother of his was really a sentimental person. Just because he became sworn brothers with him, he generously bestowed him such an opportunity. In the future, he would definitely repay this big brother well. Another 3 days later, Feng Peyun's sword heart finally disappeared. Ling Han stopped, and with a wave of his right hand, 23 flashes of sword chi flashed past, frighteningly shocking. What a pity. If I had another month, I could push my sword chi to the limit of 29 flashes. However, is 29 flashes really the limit? Ling Han didn't know. This could only be found out after he himself advanced to this level. And the so-called limits were meant to be broken. For some people, 10 flashes was the limit, while for others, 20 was the limit. He went out, and Zhu Xian'er immediately greeted him, saying, "Big brother Han, you finally came out of seclusion." Sister Hong was anxious to death. The competition is starting the day after tomorrow. Ling Han smiled, and said, "Let her be anxious for a while, I haven't collected her appearance fee yet." Right. Zhu Xian'er took out a few stones the size of a human head from the spatial ring, with different colors, black, earthy yellow, and purple green. These are the star fragments that Big Brother Feng struck down. After the people in the city picked them up, they didn't dare to keep them for themselves, so I had someone give them to Big Brother Han for you to handle. Star meteorite gold. Ling Han was overjoyed. He picked up the few meteorites and examined them carefully, revealing a smile, and said, "Blood rainbow iron, dragon tooth gold, scarlet cloud copper stone, haha, they're all 7th tier rare metals. Unfortunately, there aren't even 8th tier rare metals. Haha, one can't be too greedy, 7th tier rare metals are also not bad." Ling Han said to Zhu Xian'er, "You should also change to a sword. This is 7th tier rare metal, nourish it day and night, and brand it with your own martial art will, and in the future, it can become a 7th tier spirit tool. Thank you, Big Brother Han." Zhu Xian'er said gently, looking at Ling Han lovingly, looking as if she was at his mercy. "Don't seduce Big Brother, Big Brother's willpower is very firm." Ling Han pinched her smooth jade-like chin, then brought her into the Black Tower. He wanted to refine those star metals into weapons. These could only be called iron ores, from purification to polishing and refining. Even if they were handed over to the most outstanding blacksmith, it would be impossible to complete without about half a year's time. After all, these were all 7th-tier rare metals, so how hard were they? But inside the Black Tower, everything became extremely simple. Ling Han was like a god, releasing 10th-tier divine fire and easily melting the ores, refining away the impurities, and in less than half a day, he finished tempering. What kind of shape do you like? Ling Han asked Zhu Xian'er. Under Zhu Xian'er's continuous correction, Ling Han forged a sword with a slender blade, but extremely sharp. This still couldn't be considered a spirit tool, and needed to be continuously nourished with martial art will, but the grade of the tool embryo was there. Ling Han also forged one for himself, but his current brute force was too terrifying. This treasured sword that weighed over 50 kilograms was no different from an embroidery needle in his hand, completely unable to feel its weight. Next, Ling Han forged a bow and 10 sharp arrows for himself, but the bowstring had to be found elsewhere. And after finishing all this, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion's triennial competition was finally about to begin. Chapter 579. An ice dragon of the Shattering Void tier. In theory, this ice dragon was invincible because it was formed from a formation, and as long as the formation was still there, it would be undying, so it was naturally invincible. However, it was precisely because it was formed from a formation that once the formation was broken, it would naturally dissipate, so it still had a weakness. Was a formation easy to break? Ling Han had Helian Sun Shui attack the formation's eye with all her strength, while he controlled the ice dragon to not attack Helian Sun Shui. Honghelian Sun Shui attacked, and it was extremely terrifying. She had now raised her cultivation to the peak of the heaven tier, but that last step was too difficult to cross, making her unable to break through for a long time. This step might take 3 to 5 years, or it might take 30 to 50 years, 3 to 500 years, or it might even take a lifetime without being able to break through. There was a qualitative difference between the Shattering Void tier and the Heaven tier, and it was definitely not something that could be crossed with a bit of time. Even so, Helian Sun Shui's attack was still extremely swift and fierce, and with one move, it seemed as if it could flatten the entire Imperial Palace. This wasn't impossible. Shattering Void tier elites could shake down the stars in the sky, so what was so strange about Heaven tier elites flattening an Imperial Palace? Hong, this strike smashed onto the formation, and instantly, the entire formation was blasted back nearly 300 meters. However, the 108 formation eyes still maintained their original spacing, and the ice dragon was still there, coiled behind Ling Han, exuding a bone-chilling coldness. My full power attack actually couldn't destroy this formation. Helian Sun Shui was shocked. One had to know that she cultivated both origin power and physical arts, and added with her own freakishness, although it still wasn't enough to break through the barrier of the Shattering Void tier, she was infinitely close to this level. Too shocking. Ling Han was also very satisfied. A 10th tier formation was a 10th tier formation, and even a Heaven tier's attack wouldn't break it. Let this lady. Yi Shuang appeared, looking eager to give it a try. You. Ling Han thought for a moment. Let's go up into the sky. I'm afraid you won't be able to control yourself and destroy my Imperial Palace. My totem has just formed. Above the Imperial Palace, there was the shadow of a black tower, very faint. It was precisely the Great Ling Empire's totem, but it had just formed. According to Yi Shuang, after condensing the power of the people's hearts, it could turn into a solid form and protect the country forever. If the country existed, the tower existed. If the country perished, the tower perished. The two of them rose into the sky. Ling Han still controlled the ice dragon and didn't move, allowing Yi Shuang to attack as she pleased. This was mainly the formation's defensive limit. First attack, battle prowess of 1 star of Shattering Void tier. Yi Shuang was also very cooperative. She raised a palm and struck at the formation, raising supreme might. If it weren't for the ice dragon blocking in front of Ling Han, he wouldn't be able to watch the battle at close range. The strength of the Shattering Void tier exceeded reason, making him vaguely worried. Even if he used Black Tower's power boost now, could he reach Shattering Void tier battle prowess? Hong! The palm struck, and the great formation was obviously sent flying several hundred meters away, but it was still maintained very well, and the ice dragon was still there. Second attack, shattering void tier 2 stars. Third attack, shattering void tier 3 stars. Until the fifth attack, this great formation finally collapsed, unable to bear the battle prowess of shattering void tier 5 stars, and the 108 formation eyes danced everywhere. This was the limit. Ling Han withdrew the formation eyes, set up the formation again, and said, "Then now try to see how many stars of shattering void tier battle prowess it can reach with the ice dragon." Yi Shuang directly welcomed it with battle prowess of shattering void tier 5 stars. The ice dragon launched a counterattack, and the sky instantly became icy cold. Even if heaven tier elites got too close, they'd be frozen into ice, and could only attack a few times from afar. Yi Shuang was suppressed and wasn't the ice dragon's match, but she immediately increased her battle prowess, increasing it star by star. Shattering void tier 7 stars. Soon, the limit of this great formation was tested, which could rival shattering void tier 7 stars of battle prowess. Because when Yi Shuang increased her battle prowess to 8 stars, the ice dragon was immediately suppressed, and not long after, this great formation was once again destroyed. Ling Han was very satisfied. Although there were many shattering void tier elites now, how many could surpass shattering void tier 7 stars battle prowess? According to Hellion Sun Shui, there were only 3 in the entire Hellion royal family. The freakishness of the sea race lay in the fact that they all had true dragon bloodline, and those with profound bloodline could summon true dragons at the heaven tier with the help of ancestral blood, thereby comprehending the profoundness of the shattering void tier, making breaking through this stage far easier than other heaven tier elites. However, after advancing into the shattering void tier, the power of bloodline was almost exhausted, and very few could reach the 5th layer of the shattering void tier or above. Most people died with only 2 or 3 stars of shattering void tier battle prowess. This time, even if the Shenyu royal family sent out shattering void tier elites, Ling Han wouldn't be afraid. The ice dragon ground blast formation was enough to deal with them. They wouldn't send out their strongest elites all at once, right? "Why are you willing to help me like this?" Ling Han asked Yi Shuang. "This lady has fallen in love with you, is this reason okay?" Yi Shuang said very casually. He. Ling Han laughed. It was really too fake, but he still said, "That's true, this young master is handsome and confident, and has amazing martial arts talent, so it's natural for me to be liked by millions of women." "Hey!" Yi Shuang spat and said, "You're a frog at the bottom of a well, not knowing what freak is. I might as well tell you, in the divine realm, there are many who crossed into the shattering void tier at 20-something years old. Take this lady for example, 27 years old is shattering void tier." Ling Han made a ha sound, pointed at her, and said, "You finally admitted that you're from the divine realm." Yi Shuang raised her snow-white neck like a proud white swan, and said, "So what, bite me?" Ling Han sighed. How could this woman be such a ruffian, too much of a hoodlum? He was curious, and said, "Then why don't you return to the divine realm, and why help me? Don't say you're a good person, I don't believe it." Yi Shuang's small mouth was half open, and after a while, she said, "Why can't this lady be a good person? From head to toe, from inside to outside, you don't look like a good person in any way." Ling Han shook his head resolutely. "From inside to outside. TSK, damn brat, you're extremely bold in your lust. Speak, when did you peep at this lady?" Yi Shuang cracked her fingers, making pa sounds. All right, don't be so bored, and don't change the topic," Ling Han said seriously. "Although having a powerful shattering void tier's help is awesome, I don't want to have an unstable factor by my side." Yi Shuang laughed mischievously, and said, "Saying that, aren't you afraid that this lady will make a move against you? You have to know that for a little guy like you, this lady can catch a snail with 3 fingers, and catch one accurately. If you wanted to make a move, you should have done it long ago. Why wait until now?" Ling Han said indifferently. So I'd rather believe that you have other plans. Yi Shuang propped up her chin, and said, as a deity transformation tier, you're quite daring, clearly knowing this lady's identity and still daring to lay your cards on the table. Alright, for the sake of your guts, this lady will tell you that I feel that you have a shocking secret on you, and want to squeeze it out. Chapter 580. Is there still a need to compete? Yinla said indifferently, but she was extremely arrogant in her bones. In the alchemy competition, he invited a low-level earth-grade alchemist, and in the martial art competition, he even invited the monster Shenyuan Ziguan. He himself majored in formations and had already become a 6th-tier formation master. No matter what, he should have a complete victory in this competition, adding an incomparably glorious stroke to his resume. Why not compete? Yin Hong crossed her arms, completely showing off her majestic figure, as if complaining that others didn't know her breasts were big. Who knows, that alchemist of yours might fail miserably in a simple task. That's right, alchemy is a meticulous work. One careless mistake and you might lose everything. Clan brother Lu is too complacent, Yin Hao said angrily. Then compete. Under the supervision of the clan's elders, the alchemy competition officially began. Actually, each family could send 3 alchemists to take the field and choose the one with the best results. Yinluo was full of confidence, and only sent Xian Jiyun, while Yin Hong obviously trusted Ling Han even more, and only sent one person as well. The other 3 clans used up all 3 slots, for fear of failure and added insurance. Furnace explosion during alchemy was an extremely common thing. Even heaven-grade alchemists like Kong Zisher and Nongbo Xian couldn't guarantee a 100% success rate, let alone others. There was only one chance in the alchemy competition, and if the furnace exploded, it was over. First, choose the medicinal ingredients and determine what medicinal pill to refine. This involved a very deep game. As mentioned before, no alchemist dared to pat their chest and say that they would definitely succeed in refining pills. The difference was that refining low-level medicinal pills was infinitely close to a 100% success rate, and the higher the medicinal pill's grade, the closer it was to their own alchemy level, so the failure rate would skyrocket. Normally, when a low-level earth-grade alchemist refined a low-level earth-grade medicinal pill, the success rate was only about 30%, which was equivalent to refining 3 furnaces of medicinal pills, and only 1 furnace could succeed. Therefore, if Xian Jiyun chose to refine a low-grade earth-grade medicinal pill and succeeded, then the other alchemists would naturally be willing to admit defeat. But what if he failed? One should know that the probability of failure was as high as 60%. Once he failed, then it was nothing. Therefore, choosing the pill to refine wasn't just about one's own pill Dao level, but also how the opponent chose it. For a moment, though, the 10 alchemists were pacing back and forth in front of the medicine cabinets, and their medicine baskets were filled with many ingredients, whether they were actually concocting this kind of alchemical pill or whether it was just a smokescreen, only they themselves knew. This was a battle of wits and courage. Only Ling Han didn't care at all. He directly chose the materials he wanted to refine. Unfortunately, there was not a single stock of heaven-level material in the medicine cabinet. True, heaven-grade ingredients were too precious, so how could they possibly be taken out? Everyone knew that there were only 3 heaven-grade alchemists in the whole world now, and if the Spirit Treasures Pavilion took out heaven-grade medicinal ingredients now, other than wasting them, what other use would it have? They're businessmen, not idiots. Forget it, then let's refine a high-grade earth-grade one. Ling Han chose casually, not bothering to pay attention to others at all. Alchemy was just a formality for him. His goal was the martial arts tournament 6 days later, a showdown with Shenyuan Ziguang to see who was the strongest among the younger generation. He returned to his position and immediately opened the furnace to refine. Is this guy an idiot, starting to refine just like that? There's clearly 3 days, and the first day is definitely a battle of wits and pressure the opponent. It's best if he can make the opponent make a mistake and choose to refine a difficult pill, then the possibility of furnace explosion will be higher. Coming to the North region means he doesn't want to win. Last time, he was at the bottom, and this time will probably be no exception. I reckon the first place this time is the South region. A low-grade Earth-grade alchemist has a great psychological advantage. If he chooses to refine a high-grade black-grade medicinal pill, not only will his success rate greatly increase, he can also force others to choose to refine high-grade black-grade medicinal pill, and the possibility of his opponent's furnace explosion is extremely high. Yeah, Xianyuan Ziguang is also roped in by the South region, and in the martial art competition, he should be a sure first place. Yin Li's strength in formations is even more impressive, and even if he doesn't get first place, he'll be a sure second place. 2 first places plus 1 second place, that's definitely the champion this time. The big shots of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion all spoke one after another, but there were also a few who revealed pensive expressions, such as Yin Shuiyang, who was looking at Ling Han. Being able to become sworn brothers with a shattering void tier elite, how could he be simple? Huh, isn't that guy's technique amazing? Soon, there were exclamations. Although the Spirit Treasures Pavilion didn't have its own alchemist, it always had an extremely good relationship with the Alchemist Society, and could often get alchemists to refine pills. Thus, even if they didn't know how to refine pills, they could still appreciate a bit. Ling Han's technique was definitely amazing, experienced and ruthless. Smooth. Done in one go. More and more people arrived, all revealing shocked expressions. This youngster was only 24 or 25 years old, how could his technique be so skilled? What medicinal pill is he refining? The material seems to be the 5 turns black jade pill. Isn't this a high-level Earth-grade medicinal pill? What, this guy's crazy, refining a high-level Earth-grade medicinal pill. Yin Hong's mouth twitched, thinking that this guy not refining a heaven-grade medicinal pill was already giving them face, or else, they'd be scared to death. Ling Han's technique was skilled and smooth, to the point that people couldn't help but feel a sense of beauty, as if it wasn't pill refining, but a master performing art. Too wonderful. After finishing the selection and purification of the materials, Ling Han began to refine the pill. He was now in the flower blossom tier, and refining a high-level Earth-grade medicinal pill no longer required the help of strange fire, his own strength was enough. His figure moved, slapping palm after palm at the pill furnace. Flames rolled, and one after another, symbols shone brightly. This was drawing upon the essence of heaven and earth in the materials, perfectly interweaving the medicinal power. Phew, unbelievable, this guy's technique is too experienced, could there really be hope of forming a pill? From the looks of it, everything is going smoothly. Hiss, there's going to be another alchemy genius in the world, already a high-level Earth-grade alchemist in his 20s, then it's very possible that he'll advance into the ranks of heaven grade in the future. Don't forget, this guy's talent in martial art isn't bad either. A freak. Ling Han was unmoved, and only focused on concocting the pill. After half a day, there were multiple wisps of dense qi floating above the alchemy furnace, which turned into the shapes of mountains and rivers, birds and beasts, which was incredibly wonderful. The pill is about to form. Everyone exclaimed. Xian Ji Yun and the other alchemists were even more shocked by Ling Han. The difference of one level in alchemy was like the difference of a large tier in martial art, that was an absolute gap, not to mention that a high-level Earth-grade alchemist was almost standing at the peak of alchemy, making them want to prostrate themselves in worship. Chapter 581. One day later, the 5 turns black jade pill was refined. Fortunately, this was only an Earth-grade high-level medicinal pill, and it wouldn't attract a pill tribulation. However, because the quality was too high, it still triggered a response from heaven and earth. Thunder clouds rolled over, but there was no lightning. Ling Han slapped the lid of the cauldron forcefully. 2, 2, 2. 3 round alchemical pills flew out of the cauldron as if they had grown wings and were about to escape. From Earth-grade medicinal pills were already psychic, and heaven-grade medicinal pills were more likely to take shape. Ordinary people couldn't see through that disguise at all. He casually tossed it and said, "Examine the pills." Examining the quality of a finished pill was naturally a trivial matter for the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, which was what they did. Immediately, 3 appraisers came on stage, examined carefully, and soon came to a conclusion. The 3 medicinal pills all reached 10-star quality, which could be said to be perfect. This was still Ling Han holding back, or else it wouldn't be a problem to reach 13-star or 14-star. First, well-deserved. Xian Ji Yun and the others didn't choose materials anymore. What was there to refine? They all came over to worship Ling Han. Although this wasn't a heaven-grade alchemist, being able to refine 10-star quality earth-grade high-level alchemist, how far was he from that sacred door? In front of such a future grandmaster, how could they have the courage to show their incompetence? No one thought that the alchemy competition would have such a result. Other than the North region obtaining 30 points, the other 4 branches didn't even get a single point. Then, as long as the North region obtained another 40 points in the next 2 competitions, they could secure first place, or at least tie for first place. Ling Han put away the 5 turns black jade pill, which belonged to the alchemist after being refined. It was clearly stated before. This was also why these alchemists were willing to come over. Using other people's materials to refine pills, the refined pills were their own, it was worth it. Especially earth-grade materials, which were ridiculously expensive. He went straight back and entered the Black Tower again, continuing to study 10,000 techniques. Return to 1 and bone text. The alchemy competition was 3 days, the formation competition was also 3 days, and finally the martial art competition. Therefore, Ling Han still had 5 days, and he was confident that he could attach the bone text to the false ray. He cultivated diligently, and 5 days later, he appeared from the Black Tower. Ling Han, you're bad. Hun Yo was greatly displeased. He hadn't played with the cute and beautiful Nyo for a whole 5 days. Hanin is bad. Helian Xuanxue also followed up, pouting her cherry lips so high that it made people want to kiss them. Amitba, how could I have such a thought of being struck by lightning? What a sin! Ling Han shuddered and asked, how was the formation path competition? Sister Hong only got 3rd place, getting 10 points, Zhu Xian said from the side. Ling Han nodded very casually. He naturally did not care what ranking Hong could get in the end, but since he had participated in the competition, with his personality, he would naturally strive to win with all his might. Xianyuan Ziguang, it was time for a battle to determine who was superior. Ling Han's fighting spirit was like fire. Xianyuan Ziguang was a young prodigy with real weight, perhaps not losing to the Sword Emperor and the others in his youth. In the previous life, although Ling Han stood at the peak of martial art, he could never be called an elite. In this life, he would step on all prodigies and ascend to the throne of the strongest. They set off and arrived at a massive training field. Xianyuan Ziguang, Pang Xiangming, and other young prodigies all appeared. There were a few that Ling Han didn't recognize, but they all emitted a shocking presence, worthy of being called a young king. Brother Pang. Ling Han greeted Pang Xiangming. Although the other was a bit effeminate, his personality was still quite straightforward, giving him a good impression. Brother Han. Pang Xiangming didn't dare to put on airs, returning a salute to Ling Han with cupped fists. However, cupping fists was fine, but he raised his thumb and middle finger, appearing very effeminate. Although Ling Han was also in the flower blossom tier like him, he already heard that Ling Han concocted a high-level earth-grade medicinal pill a few days ago. Then, wouldn't he be a high-level earth-grade alchemist? He could be on equal footing with deity transformation tier elites. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, Brother Pang, after the competition, let's drink together. Of course, of course. Pang Xiangming nodded hurriedly, looking like a flowering branch, making Ling Han somewhat unable to bear it. Did this guy reincarnate into the wrong body? Get ready to begin, Yin Shuiyang said. The competition uses a ring system. The first place of the previous competition will be the first to defend the ring, and the other 4 clans will each send someone to attack the ring. The winner will defend the ring. Whichever clan can defend the ring until the end will be the first place of this competition. The first place of the previous competition was the Middle States headquarters, so a young woman walked into the center of the field and directly flew into the sky, waiting for the challenge. Each clan could send 3 people to battle, so they obviously had to determine the vanguard and general candidates. No one would play their strongest card first. The second place of the previous competition was the first to attack the ring. A tall man walked out, and the battle immediately began. Soon, the battle was decided, ending with the successful attack on the ring. Next, the South region attacked the ring. Ling Han yawned in boredom. The North region's branch could be said to have a strong army this time, with 3 super experts, Ling Han, Hunyou, and Helian Sun Shua. Ling Han was afraid that the 2 girls would be too fierce and directly beat Shenyuan Ziguang down, so he asked for the vanguard position and soon entered the field. With his strength, how could the opponent be his match if they didn't use their general's trump card? Soon, he won 8 matches in a row, forcing the generals of the other 4 clans to come out. Han Lin, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Shenyuan Ziguang entered the field, his imposing manner as if he was the son of a god. This time, I'll trample you under my feet and let you truly taste the taste of defeat. It sounds better than a song. Ling Han picked his ear. Now I'm really starting to doubt whether you're a martial artist or a drama actor. Shenyuan Ziguang was furious. You're the one with the glib tongue, not giving up until you anger people to death, and you actually had the nerve to say that in a battle between geniuses, psychological attacks were also an important part. He immediately suppressed his anger, not wanting to lose control at this time and give Ling Han a chance to take advantage of. Elites speak with their fists, he said coldly. Then why are you blabbering so much nonsense? Ling Han sneered. Why aren't you attacking? Shenyuan Ziguang stared at Ling Han, killing intent rising in his gaze, and said, for Lord Feng's sake, I'll be merciful and not beat you too badly. Ha! Ling Han shrugged and directly attacked. Don't think too highly of yourself. 6th layer of the flower blossom tier. Shenyuan Ziguang snorted. After not seeing each other for a few days, Ling Han's cultivation actually improved so quickly, shocking even him. However, he obviously wouldn't be afraid. He was confident that he could kill anyone in the same tier, not to mention that he had the advantage in tier. Kill! He raised his palms and welcomed Ling Han's attack. The 2 young king tiers finally clashed again, and this time, no one would stop them. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 582. Ling Han's fists moved, and he struck out with the war elephant fist. Shockingly, there were 21 dragons and elephants roaring. This battle was bound to take a long time, so Ling Han wasn't in a hurry to succeed, and used his fiercest sword art. Shenyuan Ziguang was also very calm. Every palm and move conformed to the norm, neither hurried nor impatient, showing his excellent martial art cultivation. Just from this battle alone, everyone thought they were old friends, and now they were just exchanging pointers, without the slightest bit of anger. However, the 2 parties involved knew that they were testing each other. Although they'd fought twice before, they'd only exchanged a few simple moves, and neither side had used their trump cards. As they fought, both of their tempers flared up, and their attacks became swift and fierce. Shenyuan Ziguang's palm was like a heavy axe, and when it chopped down, it could even collapse a mountain. The vein-like patterns weaved densely, and the will of martial art vibrated, already starting to show its might. When he struck out with his palm, 22 flashes of chi danced, its power astonishing. Ling Han wasn't outdone. Although his attainments in fist art weren't as good as his sword art, he'd also advanced into the level of 20 flashes of chi. And although he was slightly weaker in terms of cultivation level, adding the brute force brought by the 9 dragons tyrant body art, his power actually didn't lose out at all. Hong, hong, hong. The 2 of them kept exchanging blows, without any fancy tricks. What they were competing in was power and comprehension of martial art, which was the quantity and quality of chi. This was the clash of blades. Whoever was slightly weaker could only swallow the bitter fruit of defeat. But the two of them were worthy of being geniuses of the present age, and actually fought to a draw. These two are so strong. In the younger generation, how many can stand shoulder to shoulder with them? Only Yao Huiyi, Lang Yatian, Dong Ling, and a few others. The youngsters of this generation are really too strong, catching up to those geniuses in their prime. The martial art had entered a glorious golden age, and in Ling Han's generation, it was extremely dazzling. Geniuses seemed to have been knocked over and appeared like a spring. "Humph, you're still not fit to be on par with me," Shenyuan Ziguang said coldly, and struck out with his palm again, yet only a fire tiger surged out. It was as large as a mountain, and emitted a shocking aura. He combined the 22 streams of qi into one and shot it out, which had a power close to that of radiance. Ling Han laughed and said, "I forgot to thank you for teaching me this move." He also punched out, and a pale golden dragon elephant appeared, also as huge as a mountain. Upon closer inspection, regardless of whether it was the fire tiger or the dragon elephant, their bodies were all densely woven with vein-like patterns, emitting an astonishing divine light. Bam! The fire tiger and dragon elephant collided, bursting forth with a blazing light. This was the collision of martial arts willpower, turning into a divine sense shock wave that made many flower blossom tier cultivators shiver, their minds wavering under the two's martial arts willpower. The dragon elephant was even more ferocious, and with a roll of its long trunk, it actually rolled up the fire tiger and threw it away, charging towards Shenyuan Ziguang again. "How is this possible?" Shenyuan Ziguang cried out in shock. They both combined qi, and he had 22 flashes. He obviously had the advantage in quantity, so why was he still inferior to Ling Han? Could it be that in terms of qi quality, he was actually weaker than Ling Han? This was something he couldn't accept. He struck out with another palm, and only then did he dissolve Ling Han's attack. He couldn't help but look troubled. This result was too out of his expectations. "That's not right." Shenyuan Ziguang immediately discovered that the opponent's dragon elephant was entwined with an extremely special vein-like pattern, like a divine light wrapping around it. It was precisely that vein-like pattern that greatly increased the dragon elephant's battle prowess. Figuring this out, he instantly recovered his confidence. It wasn't that he was inferior to Ling Han in terms of qi quality, but that Ling Han had grasped a secret art that could increase the power of qi. Shenyuan Ziguang, definitely won't be weaker than anyone. He was full of heroism, and once again launched a fierce attack. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "Then today I'll beat you into submission." He activated the Eye of Truth, and even the slightest of his opponent's flaws were magnified in his eyes. He rolled out, attacking fiercely without end. He had the body of Iron Sheet, and also cultivated the Nine Dragons' tyrant body art. Not only was his physique tyrannical, but his brute force was also astonishing, being most suited for close combat. If he were to be directly hit by his iron fists, and those 20 flashes of qi burst forth together, probably even a spiritual infant tier cultivator wouldn't be able to withstand it. Shenyuan Ziguang knew that he was tyrannical in close combat, so how could he fight him head-on? He hurriedly moved his feet, doing his best to pull away from him. However, under Ling Han's Eye of Truth, his flaws were continuously magnified. Every step was traceable, allowing him to target and calculate his opponent's route in advance. He continuously intercepted Shenyuan Ziguang, creating a huge threat to him. Shenyuan Ziguang roared repeatedly. He'd never fought so vexed before, and this made him almost mad with anger. "You've angered me." Shenyuan Ziguang's black hair flew into the air, and his thick brows raised. He actually drew out a long saber with a flip of his hand. He was actually a saber user. Ling Han was astonished. Shenyuan Ziguang had always been barehanded, and he'd thought that Shenyuan Ziguang was most proficient in palm arts. "To be able to force me to use a saber, you're not bad," Shenyuan Ziguang said proudly. With a saber in hand, he immediately recovered his calm, and his arrogance soared. "What's the difference?" Ling Han said with a smile. "Experience it yourself." Xianyuan Ziguang slashed out with his saber. Hong, 29 flashes of saber chi slashed out, slashing wildly at Ling Han. 29 flashes. Ling Han's expression froze, and he hurriedly used the demon fairy step, dodging these saber chi. Not only was the amount shocking, this saber was at least a 7th-tier spirit tool, and the saber chi it shot out was extremely sharp. Even if Ling Han's physique was equivalent to 6th-tier rare metal, he still didn't dare to take it head-on. 29 flashes of saber chi. Heavens, how could there be such a freak? I always thought he used palms, but never thought he was actually a saber user, and his talent in the way of the saber is actually so terrifying. Probably even the small saber king of the absolute saber sect is inferior to him. Everyone exclaimed, shocked by Xianyuan Ziguang's strength and talent. This young man really hit it deeply. Who would have thought that his true specialty was saber arts? Ling Han decisively drew his sword. With the purple demon sword in hand, his right hand shook, and 23 flashes of saber chi flew out. Another freak. Everyone exclaimed again. Peng, 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 sword chi and saber chi continuously collided, turning into countless fragments and exploding. This time, Xianyuan Ziguang wasn't at a disadvantage. He had an absolute advantage in terms of the quantity of chi, and with the support of the treasured saber, the saber chi was even sharper, and its destructive power was even stronger. Saber slashes hell. Xianyuan Ziguang gave a long howl, and the treasured saber swept out. 29 flashes of saber chi merged into one, forming an incredibly thick and long saber ray, slashing towards Ling Han. Ling Han similarly slashed out with his sword. 23 flashes of sword chi merged into one, and with the support of bone patterns, it met the saber chi head-on. He couldn't see through Corpse Boss's cultivation at all, and according to what Corpse 2 said, Corpse Boss had always been cultivating in the pond of the underworld, and it was extremely likely that he would only come out of seclusion after reaching the Shattering Void tier. If this was a Shattering Void tier elite, then he'd really be able to strike the skies and break through the 9 underworlds, terrifyingly powerful. 10 moves, if he relied on his own battle prowess to withstand it, it would probably be extremely difficult. Ling Han unleashed the Revere Life Sword, and was ready for battle. Corpse Boss very casually swatted a palm at Ling Han. Hong, the heaven and earth dimmed, and a large hand appeared out of thin air, pressing towards Ling Han. Without any fancy tricks, it was just an extremely ordinary palm. However, the power of this palm shockingly reached the peak stage of the heaven tier. Ling Han brandished his sword to meet it, but was immediately sent flying by the large hand, shaking his whole body violently and almost spitting out a mouthful of blood. It was extremely shocking. His physique had obviously reached the level of 9th-tier rare metal, but his internal organs were still shaken under this one strike, as if rivers and seas were overturned, extremely uncomfortable. Second move. Corpse Boss waved another palm, and its power inconceivably increased by a large margin. Although it hadn't reached the level of the Shattering Void tier, it really wasn't too far off. This guy was definitely a Shattering Void tier existence. 10 moves to increase his battle prowess step by step, and the power of the third move would probably reach the level of the Shattering Void tier. Ling Han took another blow, and his whole body was slapped into a sheet of paper, becoming incredibly flat. However, he had managed to neutralize half of the might of such a terrifying blow. The remaining half was something that he could completely take on with his physique. Coupling toughness and gentleness. Corpse Boss revealed a look of surprise. I never thought that your physical arts had reached such a high level. However, this is only the second move. He waved his right hand again, and delivered a third palm strike. This time, it really reached the level of the Shattering Void tier. The heavens trembled and the earth cracked, groaning soundlessly under the battle prowess of the Shattering Void tier. Ling Han hesitated no longer, and waved his right hand, scattering out 108 short swords, forming the Ice Dragon Ground Blast formation. Pang! The large hand struck, but was forcibly stopped. An ice dragon appeared, blocking this palm strike. N. Corpse boss looked surprised again. You're really surprising, actually being a formation master. This person was just over 20 years old, but not only did he have astonishing accomplishments in martial arts, he also had the identity of a heaven-grade alchemist. Now, he even unleashed a 10th tier formation, which was truly inconceivable. How could a person possibly achieve such accomplishments? Corpse 2 said that you might be the reincarnation of some shattering void tier, possessing the soul of a previous life and being able to use the power of the realm, which makes some sense, Corpse boss said. There was a limit to one's strength, and even if Ling Han started studying these 3 arts from birth, 20 years' time wouldn't be able to reach the pinnacle of any one of them, let alone all 3 at once. Other than being a reincarnation of a shattering void tier, there was no second possibility. However, reincarnation and rebirth were unheard of, like him and Corpse 2, although they still had bodies from several 100,000 years ago, their souls were completely unrelated to their previous bodies. Although the body was still this body, could it still be considered a continuation of the previous body? Soul reincarnation was inconceivable, and if this were to spread, it would shock the whole world. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, 7 more moves. Corpse boss's expression was solemn, and he raised his right hand to his chest. A shocking light condensed on his palm, and vein-like patterns appeared, emitting an ancient presence. Was this his previous body's martial intent? Ling Han was somewhat gloomy. He clearly knew that his opponent was holding back a powerful move, but could only watch helplessly. He thought for a moment and decided that he couldn't be so passive, unleashing Sunset Bow. Blocking 10 moves was blocking 10 moves, but it didn't say that he could only passively take a beating. Drawing the bow, knocking an arrow, and activating the Eye of Truth, he searched for Corpse boss flaw. Phone reading was more refreshing. Since the big shot of the pavilion had already made a decision, protesting would only damage his image and reduce his points. After 3 rounds of competition, Yin Hong obtained a total of 80 points, firmly placing first. Ling Han returned to the side courtyard. Since he'd already helped Yin Hong, he naturally had to leave now to search for that boundless mountain and obtain the information that Zi Shuexian had left behind. However, he planned to delay for a few days. It wasn't that the new year had arrived, but rather that the Spirit Treasures Pavilion was about to hold an annual super auction. At that time, there would definitely be many precious treasures up for auction, which greatly interested Ling Han. In his hands, he currently had over 600,000 3-star origin crystals, which was enough for him to squander a little. But after the auction began, Ling Han discovered just how poor he was. Tycoons popped up one after another from who knows where, waving origin crystals and smashing them as if they weren't origin crystals at all, but just some rocks. Many of Ling Han's treasures were bought away just like that. In the end, he only managed to win one item. A Flood Dragon's Tendon. The Flood Dragon had the bloodline of a true dragon, and after cultivating to the extreme, it could shed its snake body and transform into a true dragon. Because of that, this Flood Dragon's Tendon was naturally incomparably precious, and only after spending almost all of Ling Han's savings did he manage to obtain it. It was also because the Flood Dragon's Tendon couldn't be used as medicine, and could only be refined into a whip-shaped spirit tool. There were very few martial artists who used whips, so Ling Han was able to obtain it for close to 600,000 3-star origin crystals. Otherwise, it definitely wouldn't be so cheap. Ling Han obviously didn't want to make this Flood Dragon's Tendon into a whip, but to use it as a bowstring. Once the auction ended, he wrapped the Flood Dragon's Tendon around the bow, finally completing the creation of the bow. This was a 7th tier rare metal paired with Flood Dragon's Tendon, and an arrow made from 7th tier rare metal could unleash its might from extremely far away. If a spiritual infant tier cultivator wasn't on guard, it was extremely possible that he'd be killed in one shot. Without circulating origin power, there wasn't much difference between spiritual infant tier and body refining tier in terms of defense. The attacker could concentrate his power on the arrow, but if the defender didn't know where the attack was coming from, he'd need to distribute origin power all over his body, or at a few vital points. In this way, It wouldn't be difficult for a flower blossom tier cultivator to break through a spiritual infant tier cultivator's defense. Ling Han was very satisfied, and named this bow Sunset Bow. The arrow was obviously Sunset Arrow, which would be his powerful killing move in the future. Paired with the Eye of Truth, he could completely ambush from 100 miles away, and even a spiritual infant tier cultivator could die in confusion, not even knowing who the opponent was. Ling Han, Ling Han. Yin Hong ran over in a hurry. What, not calling me Master Ling, aren't you a bit too quick to burn the bridge after crossing it? Ling Han said with a smile. Hey, you tricked my good sister into your hands, and still want me to call you Master. Yin Hong's face was full of disdain, then her expression turned serious, and she said, I'll tell you a huge piece of news. From your mouth, the old Wang next door giving birth to a son is also a huge piece of news, Ling Han continued to tease. Ha, then you don't have to hear it. I came to tell you out of goodwill, but you have this kind of attitude. Really hurtful, I'll ignore you. Yin Hong made a move to leave. Wait, since you're already here, then say it, Ling Han said with a smile. You're really casual. Men that are too casual aren't reliable. I say, Sister Xian Er, what's so good about this kind of man, why not follow me? Aren't we just missing a penis? Without that thing, we really can't live on, Yin Hong said very roguishly, but it made Zhu Xian Er's pretty face flush, and she threw herself into Ling Han's arms, not daring to be with this female rogue. Helian Sun Shui, however, was curious, and asked, missing what penis? Nyo also wants to know. Hunyo didn't want to be left out. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 585. Don't listen to this female pervert's nonsense. Ling Han pointed at Yin Hong, and said, in the future, don't treat her as a woman, but as a man reincarnated into the wrong body, possessing a female body. So, if she approaches you, you have to imagine it as a man approaching you, understand? Helian Sun Shui and Hunyo instantly revealed an ominous glint. A stinky man wanted to approach them? You're brainwashing. Yin Hong pointed out. As expected of a master, you're really full of tricks. No wonder so many little girls were tricked by you. Less nonsense, what's that message? Ling Han asked. Yin Hong finally said seriously, Heaven Sword Sect, Cloud Phoenix Sect, Absolute Saber Sect, Blue Thunder Sect, and Earth Dragon Sect, the 5 great sects jointly announced that they will establish the Restore Heaven Academy to recruit all geniuses in the world. Oh. Ling Han was puzzled. The 5 great sects had been passed down since ancient times, and were the only 5 forces that had been passed down since ancient times. Each had a long history, so why would they jointly establish some Restore Heaven Academy now? Did they say why? He asked. The 5 great sects jointly announced that the world will be in great chaos soon, possibly leading to a break in the whole of martial art. Thus, the 5 great sects will select as many outstanding geniuses as possible to nurture. If there really is a great calamity, they can also leave behind the seeds of revival, Yin Hong said. This reason is quite lofty, Ling Han mumbled. Master Ling, are you interested in going? Yin Hong asked. Ling Han thought and said, where is this Restore Heaven Academy? 9 Dragon Mountain. A thought flashed through Ling Han's mind. This 9 Dragon Mountain was in Flying Flower County, and the boundless mountain that Zishui Xian left behind the message should also be in Flying Flower County. What a coincidence. Since he was going to Flying Flower County, there was no harm in going along the way. After all, the 5 great sects had existed for who knew how many millennia, and possessed the most complete inheritance of martial art. Going there to study should be somewhat beneficial. Although Ling Han obtained many secret arts in his previous life, how could one person's power compare to the accumulation of countless generations? If all the monstrous geniuses in the world are gathered here, I will be looking forward to it, said Ling Han with a smile. I knew you'd be interested. However, not everyone can enter this Restore Heaven Academy. The 5 great sects will first issue notices to some geniuses, allowing them to directly enter the academy. As for the remaining people, they'll have to pass through layers of screening, Ing Hong continued. I see. Ling Han smiled and said, I wonder if anyone sent me a notice. Yo, Grandmaster Ling, are you jealous? Ing Hong laughed loudly. Let me tell you a piece of unfortunate news. Xianyuan Ziguang has already received the notice, and will set off this morning. As for you, you haven't made any movements at all. Ling Han was puzzled, and said, in terms of martial art level, I'm at least not inferior to Xianyuan Ziguang, and in terms of alchemy ability, I'm even a high-level Earth-grade alchemist, so why did they skip over me? He wasn't placing too much importance on this admission quota, he simply couldn't understand. Grandmaster Ling, you're too full of yourself. Ing Hong shook her head with a smile. The 5 great sects must have planned for the establishment of the Restore Heaven Academy long ago, and have already confirmed a batch of geniuses that can enter the academy, such as Yao Huiyu, Small Saber King, Dong Ling and the others. As for you, how long has it been since you appeared? It was indeed so. Only 3 days had passed since Ling Han defeated Xianyuan Ziguang, and Million Treasures City had been sealed off by the 4th Great Formation, so no news could have possibly spread. Ling Han laughed heartily. He had indeed taken things for granted. After Ing Hong left, Ling Han couldn't help but ponder. In the memory stone that Zi Shuexian left behind, 10,000 years ago, someone from the divine realm should have come and destroyed the inheritance of the previous generation's martial art, and according to the news of later generations, it was the Heaven Sword sect and the other 4 great sects that joined forces to turn the tide and drive away those invaders. Ling Han once went to an ancient battlefield in Rain Country, where at least a few hundred Heaven-tier elites joined forces to attack a shattering Void-tier cultivator, leaving behind countless corpses. Now, that shattering Void-tier cultivator might not be a shattering Void-tier cultivator, but could be a divine being whose tier was suppressed by this realm. However, Zi Shuexian said that all of this could be a lie. Now, 10,000 years had passed, and the 5 great sects opened the Restore Heaven Academy, saying that the world was extremely likely to be in chaos. Could it be that the divine realm was going to descend and invade again? Ma Duobao once said that he wanted to split open the sky and bring a piece of heaven and earth directly into the divine realm, allowing even the fowls and dogs to ascend to heaven. Did he also foresee this great chaos? Also, Feng Piyun said that he didn't dare to rashly break open the void, and that there would be a great disaster. Could it also be related to the divine realm? Ling Han thought until his head swelled. He knew a lot of things now, but he couldn't understand more and more. Why did the divine realm want to invade the vast lands? What was there that was worth the divine realm coveting? Moreover, if the divine realm really wanted to destroy the vast lands, could the 5 great sects really be able to stop them? If several thousand or tens of thousands of divine beings came, even if they were all suppressed to the shattering void tier, wouldn't that still be enough to sweep them away? Ling Han couldn't understand no matter how much he thought about it. If it really was an invasion by divine beings, then what ability did the 5 great sects have to drive out the foreign races and return their lands? Could it really be as Zi Shuexian said, that everything was a lie? He could only find out if he found Zi Shuexian's message. This trip to the Heaven Mending Academy was something he had to do. Ling Han had nothing to worry about anyway, so once he made up his mind, he decided to immediately set out. Zhu Erxian and the other 2 girls obviously wouldn't object. After bidding farewell to Yin Hong, they set out on their journey. Ling Han originally wanted to meet Kong Zisher. This was very likely a descendant left behind by his disciple, but he was a heaven-grade alchemist now, after all. His days were very comfortable, and there was no need for him to worry. Moreover, if he said he was the ancestor of the Kong family, he'd definitely be rolled his eyes, right? Forget it, he'd think about it later. The only thing that left Ling Han with regret was that he still didn't know what the treasure that the Thousand Corpse sect was scheming for when they attacked Million Treasures City was. Although it might not be useful to him, once a person's curiosity arose, he would always keep it in mind. The 4 of them set out, heading towards Flying Blossom County. They hired a carriage, and Ling Han naturally returned to his original appearance. Always wearing a face that was disguised made him uncomfortable, too. After arriving at the Restore Heaven Academy, he could disguise himself as another person, and Han Lin's identity was very likely already exposed. After all, the two people's names were so similar, and they both cultivated both martial arts and alchemy. Their achievements were frighteningly high, and it was extremely easy for people to associate them together. In the Black Tower, Ling Han played with the Sunset Bow. The Flood Dragon's tendons were indeed tough. Not to mention Flower Blossom tier warriors, even Heaven tier warriors might not be able to use this bow. If one didn't cultivate physical arts, drawing the bow would consume a large amount of origin power, and how would one be able to concentrate the excess origin power on the arrow to deliver a fatal blow? Unlike weapons like swords, sabers, and spears, even if forged with rare metal, they wouldn't weigh more than 50 kilograms. Who didn't have this bit of strength? But to draw the sunset bow, what kind of strength was needed to lift up a mountain? Cell phones were more refreshing to read. Chapter 586. It's quite useful to have a strong physique. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh ruefully. Otherwise, he'd have to expend a large amount of origin power on drawing the bow, and when he used Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow, its power would definitely be much weaker. I wonder if Sword Emperor and the others cultivated physical arts. He was suddenly curious. Drawing the bow and shooting the arrow, the sunset arrow shot out. At first, it could still be seen with the naked eye, but after shooting for a few miles, it accelerated to a terrifying degree, truly like a stream of light, traveling 100 miles in an instant. Extremely far away, a target set up by Ling Han was instantly shot by the sunset arrow, turning into shattered rocks that filled the sky. The maximum range is 300 miles. Any further and the power will start to weaken, and the speed will also start to decrease. Ling Han said to himself. However, from shooting to the maximum range of 300 miles, it only needs 1/100th of a heartbeat, so fast that even the naked eye can't catch it. After advancing into the Flower Blossom tier, there'll be warning signs when encountering danger, but these warning signs won't tell you where the attack is coming from or what kind of attack it is. Taking myself as an example, if I didn't have the Black Tower, the first reaction would definitely be to condense poly power and set up defenses all over my body. However, under the Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow, even the defense of a spiritual infant tier elite can be penetrated. If origin power is spread all over the body, and not concentrated on a few vital points, how could a defense that was divided into several parts be able to block the Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow? This also reminds me that I'm not the only person in the world who knows archery, and some spirit tools can have similar effects. Thus, if I encounter such a situation, hiding in the Black Tower is obviously foolproof, but sometimes I'm not allowed to enter the Black Tower, so I can only spread origin power on various vital points and can't have the extravagant hope of escaping unscathed, or else it'll be seeking death. Fortunately, I've cultivated Body of Iron Sheet, and ordinary people can't threaten me. If I cultivate Indestructible Body of Diamond, I believe that even a spiritual infant tier warrior using Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow can't hurt me. Ling Han concluded. The Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow combined with a precious artifact like the Sunset Bow, in addition to the Eye of Truth, had become his greatest killing move. It could easily take someone's life from 100 miles away. There are too few arrows. I have to forge some more. It's just that 7th tier rare metal is too precious. Where can I get so many? He suddenly felt a strange movement. The carriage had been ambushed, and in an instant, the carriage exploded. The 2 coachmen were also killed. Dust flew everywhere, and 3 masked elders appeared, giving off a terrifying aura. Where is he? An elder asked. Could it be that it's a diversion, purposefully moving out in the open to attract our attention, but in reality, it's another path? The second elder said. What a meticulous mind, said the third elder. Although Han Lin might not be Ling Han, this matter involves the inheritance and divine treasures of the 12 palaces. We can't let him go even if he's wrong, said the first elder. Yes. The other 2 elders nodded. Let's go. The 3 leaped up and walked back. Ling Han exited the Black Tower. From what the three revealed, they'd already seen through his disguise, but they still couldn't be completely sure. These three were truly vicious and merciless. In the situation where they weren't sure of his identity, they still suddenly attacked to kill, truly ruthless. Chapter 587. Nonsense, the Heaven Tier reprimanded. The rules set by our ancestors have all been weathered by wind and rain for millions of years, so they are naturally the truth. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "Are you stupid? What rules set by our ancestors? Those are obviously set by the strong. I'm strong, so I can speak. This is the truth that will never change for tens of thousands of years. Since that's the case, I'll beat you into submission." The Heaven Tier took large strides, his essence, chi, and spirit bursting forth like a blazing furnace. Ling Han smiled and said, "Then I'll use you as a chicken and kill you for these monkeys." Impudence. The Heaven Tier was furious. He was an elite of the Heaven Tier, a supreme existence in the East region, and now he was actually mocked as a chicken. How could he not be furious? He humphed and drew out a long cyan whip. With a shake, this whip immediately straightened like a long spear. Elder Zhang is angry and is going to fight for real. That's only natural. Elder Zhang is a well-known figure in our East region, and among the 10 strongest, he can be ranked in the top 5. This brat actually dares to insult Elder Zhang. He's completely courting death. The elites of the East region were all discussing spiritedly. They naturally thought that Ling Han was dead for sure. The elite of the Heaven Tier was surnamed Tan, and his given name was Zhang, but no one dared to call him directly by his name, and all referred to him as Elder Zhang. Jia Zhang was one of the leaders of the elites of the East region this time. His move this time could be considered a battle between kings, the strongest battle between the two sides. Of course, in the eyes of the elites of the East region, there was no suspense in this battle. It was definitely Jia Zhang's complete victory. Ling Han extended his right hand, and said indifferently, "I'll give you a handicap of 1 hand." Fuck! Flames immediately danced on top of Jia Zhang's head. For an elite that had reached his level, even if he didn't cultivate fire element arts, he could still draw upon the spiritual chi of heaven and earth with a single thought, and turn it into flames. He was obviously furious. A mere junior in the deity transformation tier, so what if he had shocking talent? He actually said he would give him a handicap of 1 hand, causing his eyes to spit fire from anger. This junior really didn't know the difference between life and death. He brandished his whip spear and attacked Ling Han. Ling Han hadn't seen this kind of weapon, and couldn't help but feel curious. He shifted his feet, wondering what was so outstanding about this technique. Needless to say, this spirit tool was really quite extraordinary. It could be used as a spear thrust, but after it was blocked, it could turn into the softness of a whip, forming a lashing attack. Patterns were also branded on it, and after being activated, it emitted a faint blue light, its power astonishing. Being able to rank among the strongest in the East region, he obviously wasn't boasting. Unfortunately, he was facing Ling Han. "My physique is comparable to 9th tier rare metal, so how can you injure me? Even if you use strange fire to melt it, it wouldn't be something that can be done in a short period of time. At least a few days and nights would be needed to refine it." Although Jia Zhang was fighting fiercely and seemed to have the upper hand on the battlefield, suppressing Ling Han, in reality, he wasn't a threat to Ling Han at all. It was only because Ling Han was thinking about the changes of this whip spear that he didn't retaliate from beginning to end. "Elder Zhang, eliminate this extremely audacious guy. That's right, kill this brat, and we can return to the East region. The spiritual chi in this place is too thin, and staying here for 1 more day is 1 more day of loss." Everyone called out one after another, hoping to quickly finish off the errand of eliminating Ling Han so that they could return to the East region as soon as possible. Jia Zhang naturally wanted to deal with Ling Han, but he understood in his heart that Ling Han seemed to be at a complete disadvantage, yet was extremely calm, and definitely wasn't someone he could defeat in a short period of time. He couldn't help but goad Ling Han, Jr., just how long do you want to hide here and there? Behind you is the Imperial City, so where can you hide? Ling Han just so happened to be tired of playing, and said with a smile, you want to be defeated so badly? Fine, I'll fulfill your wish. He stretched out his right hand, and instantly, golden light shone. He had already activated the earth-overturning seal, pressing towards his opponent. This was a mystical power. Ling Han had long since cultivated the earth-overturning seal to the point that he could use it with both hands and use it with one hand. Thus, even if he only used his right hand now, his battle prowess was only slightly weakened. He instantly switched from defense to offense, and instantly took the initiative in the situation and momentum. These days, the heaven-tier elites he encountered were all like Su Shou Ran and Corpse 2, which made him feel that heaven-tier elites were very strong. But now that it was Jia Zhang, he instantly had a feeling that heaven-tier elites were very weak. Jia Zhang could be called a supreme elite in the East region, but how could he compare to Su Shou Ran and the others? What? Elder Zhang was actually suppressed. How is this possible? Oh my god, this must be fake. All the East region's elites held their heads and cried out in shock. This was too fake. A junior in the deity transformation tier could actually suppress a heaven tier elite, and that was even a veteran heaven tier elite that had been famous for a long time. Their outlook on life was about to collapse. Another heaven tier elite snorted and said, it's not a one-on-one fight now. Our mission is to annihilate the Great Ling dynasty, and now the king is in front of us. Brother Tu, Brother Ma, Brother Zhang, attack with this old man and eliminate this junior. Okay. The other heaven-tier elites nodded one after another. Indeed, this wasn't a martial arts contest, and there was no need to talk about any one-on-one rules. A total of 7 heaven-tier elites walked out together and surrounded Ling Han. Hu Niu instantly jumped out and said, Niu will play with you guys. Ling Han smiled and said, no need, I'll deal with them. Since these people came at him together, he didn't have to keep his promise of using only one hand. He immediately unleashed the Revere Life Sword, and with a shake, soared light sword into the skies. With the supportive power of the nation, he used the mysterious 3000. Instantly, 3,100 flashes of sword light burst forth, enveloping the 8 great heaven-tier elites at the same time. What? Jia Zhang and the others were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. This, how could there possibly be such a swift and fierce sword technique in this world, attacking 8 great heaven-tier elites at the same time, and making everyone feel an irresistible sense of helplessness? This realization was already too late. The sword light streaked past, and the 8 great heaven-tier elites all fell down, instantly dead. In the camp of the elites of the East region, there was only dead silence left. How could they resist? They couldn't resist at all. Ling Han withdrew his sword, and said indifferently, how is it? Is there anyone else who wants to surrender, or stubbornly resist to the end? The heaven-tier elites of the East region had all died in battle, and the ones left were only in the deity transformation tier. Facing Ling Han, who was like a god, they could no longer summon the slightest bit of desire to fight. Some people surrendered on the spot, but there were also some who chose to flee. They didn't want to become someone else's servant. Hu Niu showed her might, her body turning into lightning. Every grab was accurate, and who could escape from her hands? After luring the enemy deep in, she closed the door and beat the dogs. The East expedition troops of the East region were declared completely annihilated. Ling Han summoned all of them to surrender. In the face of death, very few people could face death with equanimity. Moreover, they were also ordered to attack, and had no irreconcilable hatred with Ling Han, so why should they fight to the death? Could it really be that the middle state would confer upon them the title of martyr? That you're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.